it's getting too crazy, maybe then I'm gonna put them in the thing. What's up, Starlings Tucky? Wait. Starlings Tucky. Carl Smith, Crystal Lynn. How are you, everyone? I'm gonna wait for a few more people to show up. Sam Chrono, Riri. How are you, everyone? What's up, Wisconsin? Good to see everybody. To all the newcomers, this channel, just so you know, revolves usually around the simulation hypothesis. My name is Danny, and I'm claiming to have found proof that we live in simulation. Cronin is saying it's raining in Wisconsin. And we're meeting here on the daily to discuss science, religion, spirituality, philosophy, and a lot of other fun topics. I'm gonna wait maybe a couple more minutes just to start the chat. Appreciate the like. Maybe we'll give it a few more just to get the chat going so we have more people showing up. What's up, Hector? Welcome to everyone. Today we're also gonna have a guest. What are you looking for, babe? What's up, Spore Muse? Good to see you. Salad fingers. Really good to see everybody. Welcome to whomever's showing up on YouTube. Eventually, we're going to grow our crowd on YouTube as well. Mike Smith, welcome, welcome, welcome. So, like I said, we're going to maybe wait a couple more minutes just for more people to show up. Anybody who's here and want to help to get the chat going up, if you can press a few likes, that way we can get a little bit more people in the chat. Lonnie, John O'Brien, thank you for sharing. Beastie. Oh, Beezy. Thank you for the likes, guys. Yeah, there we go. All right. So I was saying in the beginning of the chat to all the newcomers, this chat usually revolves around the simulation hypothesis. My name is Danny, and I'm claiming to have found proof that we live in a simulation. We're meeting here on the daily to discuss all kinds of fun ideas, science, religion, spirituality, philosophy, and whatever comes to mind, really. We just kind of go with the flow. My goal with this live on a daily basis is to connect with people on a more regular basis and find out what people care about, what particular topics. So it makes it also easier for me to put out content on my YouTube channel, which is Dango Thoughts, which is a more full length content versus TikTok, obviously. What's up, Dean? Thank you for sharing the live, Spore Moose. By the way, Spore Moose, appreciate you for showing up many other days. Deeply appreciated. What is Camp TikTok Live? Wonder what that is. TikTok always have all these new features that you don't really know what they are, and they're just gonna spring them on you, and then you have to read a bunch of things to understand what it is. What's up, Robert? Okay. Troy Morales. So yesterday we had some pretty lively discussion about religion and people's religious convictions. And then at the beginning of the conversation, we talked more about physics. So it was a good spectrum of the types of subjects we touched on. How you doing, Cal? Good to see you, brother. Always great to have you over here. And yeah, like I said, today we're supposed to have a guest. Hopefully he'll be able to make it. I think he will. Should make the conversation a lot more lively. He's someone I'm really enjoying his channel. Awesome. Thank you so much for the likes, guys. So yesterday we'll be here for an hour. Parent info night. Uh, wait, you mean like your kids? What's up, Eliza? You mean that you're going? What is parent info night? I'm clueless. Is that when parents go to school and get notified about what's going on with their kids? Yeah, I assumed for your daughter's school. How old is your daughter, by the way? Nikki, what's up? Uh, the more I engage with the chat, even though we do, what's up, Maya? We definitely have some regulars. Cal is one of them. Cal, I think you literally showed up for every single one of them, right? Give or take. You and Beastness and a few other people. Really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. It's also encouraging me to show up every day. And the more I engage with the chat, the more I understand that there's a good spectrum of people here, from people that are more scientifically minded, people more spiritual, and we have a regular Toetron Max who's claiming he's not religious, but he's talking about Jesus a lot. And once again, still welcomed. I appreciate it. Danny ain't too bright, said Kappa Joe. That should actually be a name of my channel. Danny ain't too bright. It's a pretty great handle. I think so. At least once I saw you start going live. I appreciate it, man. I just realized that we are able to like live streams more than once. Do we have infinite likes? I think we do have infinite likes. Will save us all from good people. Wait, God will save us from the good people? I'm confused. Sport Muse, you thought that it was like limited likes? That would actually suck. It's great that they allow you to like as many as you want. Virgo girl. So Kappa Joe wants God to save us from the good people. You want the bad people to win? I am the righteous one. Yeah, I'm definitely not that. Are you the righteous one, Kappa Joe? So as I'm noticing the types of people that show up for the chat, um, it's easier to focus on particular subjects, even though I do enjoy a random subject here and there, and it actually makes it easier to explore because it's more fun for me to explore a subject I don't necessarily know that much about, because we get to talk about it. All right, well, I think there we go. I think you overplayed your card, Kappa Joe. Lively discussion is always open, but if you're here to leave stupid comments that actually don't lead to any conversation, you're out of here. That's not something I'm looking for in the chat. Bullshito is a great handle. Have you heard of Rand Institute? Let's see. No, I have not. Or if I have, I don't remember. Let's see. Nonprofit institute that helps improve policy of dissemination of through research and analysis. Issue that matter much as. So can you tell me in short what they actually do or what you thought of them? .org. Yeah, I see it. I wonder if all the people that are talking about God are people that are sent by Toretron Max. It would be hilarious. What's up, Alicia, Sylvia? So why are you talking about it? Why were you talking about it, Cal? I'm seeing the Rand Corporation, right? I would assume it's that. What do they do? What's up, Mad Dogs? Let's go to their website real quick. Wait, what? The first thing the first thing on their page right now, if you Google Rand.com, is a picture of Putin. Is that like a news organization? What is that? You can prove supernatural or something beyond physical. They have cash 1 million. Oh, well, I think, well, again, first of all, it's great to know about it. Yeah, it is that. Or I wonder if they think that Putin is supernatural, but I think framing it as supernatural is actually misleading, and probably is the thing that puts it off the mark for a lot of people. Are they related in any way to what was that name? What was that magician's name? Randy something, right? Is that his organization, the one that was offering $1 million for anybody who can prove any supernatural abilities? Beyond known physics. I see. Well, that's good to know. I mean, this is something that I should definitely contact them. Thank you for that. Rand.com. .org. Wait, I think it might be .com then. Yeah, I think it's .com because the .org is the one with the. Let's see. Well, I'll find out right after. But it's not the one with the. You know what I'm talking about? There's this magician who was basically running all these tests, and he's the one that exposed Uri Geller back in the day. Is that the same? Is that his organization or something? Or something of that flavor? The business. What's up, brother? Oh, cool. Okay. Well, he definitely has a chip on his shoulder, but might be a good way to go. See, this is actually one of the problems. So, like, for example, if the proposition is that you have to use one of the to also to all the newcomers, the proposition that I'm putting, you can watch my videos on the subject. But if you project a diffracted laser on a surface and you ingest a molecule that I cannot name on a live chat, you will see give Danny $1 million. I will definitely do some good things with it. Everybody always thinks that, right? I would hope that I would actually follow through. No, but it would definitely go through the research at that point. But definitely, no. I mean, that would be the mission. Aside from a few things that are close to my heart, like they will take a lot more than $1 million. But like, if we can do anything about the homelessness situation, that would be amazing. I don't know why, but it bothers me a lot. So the proposition is, to everybody who doesn't know, is that if you project the diffracted laser on the surface and you digest, why do I keep saying digest? You can't really digest it. You have to smoke it. Smoke a particular molecule that I cannot name. What's up, Ava? On this chat, you will see code running in surfaces. So the problem is the second part of this statement. For all the people like this Rand organization, I'll look deeper into it regardless, is that the second you're going to tell them, well, you have to, ingest a particular substance, they're going to go, well, okay, well, how can it possibly fit into the picture? And then you have to do a lot of work convincing them that there's actually something there, because the way we think about the world is skewed at the moment. And just that alone is a lot of convincing, which obviously I'm in the business at this point of doing. So it would be actually an interesting exercise in communication with people that are relatively skeptical. What's up, Dakota?
Oh, there he is.
How you doing, brother?
Can you hear me okay?
Oh, we can hear you great. Can you hear me okay?
You can hear me good?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Okay.
Wait,
I just got my account back.
Oh, I didn't know that you were out.
Perfectly. I'm going to go sit now since I can hear you.
Amazing.
Yeah, I just got it back. Yeah, no, I'm constantly getting suspended.
Oh, really? How come?
Got to put these.
Okay, you can't hear me right now?
Just the
They discontinued the challenge because somebody proved it. That'll be hilarious.
Are we good?
Oh yeah. I don't know if you can hear me though.
How about now?
I can hear you perfect. Hold on, let me actually text you. 1 second, everybody.
Okay.
I can hear you.
No,
But you can't hear me?
I can hear you perfectly.
Yeah, we can
I
hear
still
you
have some
perfectly.
now.
There you go.
Yeah, perfect. I can hear you perfectly.
Amazing. How you doing, brother?
Okay, good. Yeah, this is sorry for the connection. No, I just got my account back. I was suspended.
Why were you
They just
suspended?
gave it back to me.
Wait, why were you suspended?
Yeah.
Why were you suspended?
Do you know the Olympic boxer?
No.
She fought the Italian woman, and she was because of the. I posted a video about that. I
Wow.
put like lipstick on, and I said I'm going to join Olympic boxing now, and I was like beating the shit out of my punching bag, and it was starting to move and starting to go viral, and I got the flag, and it said inappropriate content.
That is so nuts.
I don't learn. I constantly want to have edgy content, and they keep putting me in timeout. But my account suffers as a result for the following week. The shadow ban is absolutely a real thing.
Oh yeah.
Like the views drop immediately.
Wow. Also, just so you know, I've noticed that
Looks like
I
lost
realize what
connection.
the problem is. You're going to hear it in a moment. There's a delay between us for
Turn
some
this
reason.
one.
I'm not sure why, but there's a delay. But that's fine because as long as we are on one coherent stream of thought, and maybe we can wait a second before the other person speaks, and that'll be fine. But I can hear you perfectly.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So anyway. So first of all, before everybody with all the questions, I want to introduce Lakota is an incredible TikTok content creator. I really enjoy your content, man. I came to know about you because you mentioned me one time in one of your videos, and I thought it was very funny. And then I obviously followed you, and then I really enjoy everything you're doing. And it is interesting that the most interesting accounts, or the ones that at least I would call sane, are always suffering under this regime of wokeness. I don't know if you know, but Richard Dawkins's Facebook account was deleted, like completely, because of the same reason. So he said something about that exact thing, and his account was just deleted. Meta deleted his account. It's insane. So I wonder when you actually arrive. Go ahead.
I have to get a better connection because this is going to be fascinating. I have to get a better connection because this is going to be fascinating because I think what you discovered is so incredibly underrated and it's so valuable. And so people can dismiss it very quickly as like, oh, it's some hippie guy is on like a drug. No, when there's multiple people experiencing the same exact thing, now you have a controlled experiment.
Mm-hmm.
And this is crazy. I've talked to somebody else that was actually going through a similar awakening as you have. My apologies, Mike. I don't know.
No, we can hear you.
Hey, Lakota.
We'll be back.
Hey, no, why is your Bluetooth keep connecting to this?
That's why.
Is that better?
Yeah. Now
I think we're finally here. Sorry.
Yeah. It's all good. I think that was the thing. I think the Bluetooth was sending it somewhere else, and that was the delay that we were experiencing.
That was the delay. Okay. Awesome. No. The first couple, when I was telling my dad about this, he's a 72-year-old Jewish man. He was very resistant to the idea at all. He was like, oh, it's just hippies doing drugs. I was like, but he's intelligent too. He's a psychologist. He's got his degree. And I said, well, Dad, what happens when multiple people experience the same exact thing. It's no longer a coincidence. This is controlled. If you can take a substance and see a line of code, that's fucking insane.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an underrated discovery, and I think it's underrated for a reason. I think if this unraveled more, and you're not alone, some of the biggest scientists in the world are definitely not dismissing the fact that this could all be a simulation. It's fascinating. I'm too much of a bitch to do the DM, do whatever I have to do to get to that spot. Because I'm a baby. If I have like one little hit or one little drink, I'm gone. Like I can't hold my liquor. I can't smoke. So
you have a lot of energy. You have a lot of energy for someone who does which is amazing. In all your videos, you're very lively and.
I get that a lot. Like, are you on crack? No crack, not today. I get that a lot, but I want to know more about how many different people now saw this line of code, and what process does it take exactly to get there?
So a few important points to make. The first one is I'm not a psychologist, but I would like to think of myself as a relatively intelligent person, and I think it's just a matter of really staying loyal to the facts and not confusing anybody else. The short answer to your question is over 1,000 worldwide. Conservative numbers will be a little bit under 1,000, but probably a lot more than that, because at this point you have a lot of communities worldwide that are replicating this. As for so first of all, thank you so much for your support and all of that. But I would say that it's the underrated part of it. I'm not really sure that I would even see it as underrated. I think that anything of a claim of this magnitude in reality will always go through these stages. So to me, that's totally normal. I always say people like these ideas, but they don't necessarily like actually knowing that. So it's like they like to play with these ideas as a hypothetical, but when it comes to the real thing, all of a sudden there's like wait, I don't know if I'm ready for this. And that is a very natural and a human thing to do. And I would say that actually it's probably wise to, and this is why that's the way I was going about it. I'm working on a documentary right now about the whole thing. It's progressing really well and very well done. And one of the things that is a challenge for me, aside from the fact that the subject matter is under some contention simply because of the classification of the substance required, but aside from that, it's something that I have to be very aware of how certain people receive the information, and then frame it in a way that also makes sense of it and doesn't jar to too large of a degree. I'm not, like you said, I'm not alone in the space of trying to ask the question in a serious manner. But for example, the people that the video that I saw in which you mentioned me, you put me in the same line with people like Neil deGrasse Tyson and who else was it? It was I forget who else it was, but I mean, you put me in the frame of with two very brilliant people, which I mean, obviously it's very encouraging, but I don't know if I belong in that family. But then you said
you probably do. It's just a matter of funding and exposure, and the right channels opening up in the simulation for your name to be there. What you found is crazy.
Oh, it is absolutely crazy.
So it's insane.
So to your point though, because I want to just maybe give you a little bit of a frame and answer a couple of your questions, and then I invited you for a reason, because I really enjoy your content and I actually wanted to ask you a few questions. But before I do that, specifically to your point about it being underrated, if I talk, for example, right now to Neil deGrasse Tyson, right, you and I both know that even though he voiced that opinion, he will have very strong resistance to it. And the reason for that is because his assumption would be that the methodology by which this was arrived at does not fall in the domain of what he would consider legitimate way of exploring the world, right? And he even talked about him not ever doing psychedelics, as I think he was talking on Joe Rogan about this, in which he said that he never did it because he feels like it might temper with some of his abilities to keep a clear mind. So
think quite the opposite. It would open up neural pathways that he doesn't have access to at this point, and he might become super powerful. One, two, if you can't say so. If you throw up a ball in the air and it drops down, it's not. I mean, it's not science. But if you do that 100 times in a row, and just one of those times it floats, you can't document that as an experiment. So if you keep doing something and repeating it, you could start to document it and say, I have something here that we can do over and over again and achieve the same exact result. That can't be ignored by any mind. I don't care who it is or who says it or when this. You cannot ignore something that could be repeated in a controlled study, even if it does take a third opinion. People have proven this with medications. Oil of oregano is like nature's antibiotic. It's been proven. Also suppressed, though. But I wanted to ask you, before you ask me a question, I have a savage case of ADD, so I have to try to stay. I have to ask you this.
We're on the same page. Go ahead.
You heard of the double slit experiment?
This is one of the reasons that actually, this is how I eventually arrived at this idea of that the laser might actually do something. But go ahead.
Every day I wake up and I'm like, is today the day where this will be on like CNN and Fox at the same time? That a fucking atom, a micro, I don't even know what is it? It's not even. It's an electron. It's the small.
Either an electron or a photon. One of them.
Yeah, they act differently when they're being observed, and they tried to trick this motherfucker by turning the machine, and they couldn't trick it. It's either if you're watching it, it acts one way, and when you look away, it acts another. That means it's almost like a video game where you turn and then it populates because it just doesn't have the bandwidth to have all the information all the time. So as a human being would turn, it then brings it in. It brings it into play. There's main characters. This shit's fascinating. And
yeah.
I think the double slit experiment is kind of dismissed as, wow, it's pretty cool. But it's not just pretty cool. It fucking proves that they're awake. Atoms are awake. It proves that atoms are awake. It proves it. It's science. They do it in a room with scientists and laser beams, and they have money, and they do it at universities, and people write shit down, they publish it, and they're like, here, we did it. And they're like, hey, thank you for all those things. Thank you. I appreciate that. Someone's throwing dinosaurs at me. But yeah, please proceed with your questions. I just had to tell you about the double slit, my thoughts on it, because it seems insanely, like, as your experiment is underrated.
Well, again, I appreciate it. So a couple of things. First of all, there's a few things to untangle there. The first one is that the original thought was around the double slit experiment that then years down the line made me arrive at this conclusion that the laser is supposed to do something. I would say, however, that the public perception of what the double slit experiment really is. So here's a way to say this. The double slit experiment is actually much weirder than most people understand or think about. If you just listen to popularizers of science, kind of like Neil deGrasse Tyson, because these explanations, they don't really capture the true weirdness of the experiment. So the way that it's being delivered to the public at the moment is you have a particle can either be a particle or a wave. And then when we turn on this device, all of a sudden it switches from being a wave to being a particle. That's the simple version of how it's being expressed to the people. And then the next thing that is being said about it is like, well, it shows that the observer is what changes whether it's going to be a particle or a wave. So somehow the particle, quote unquote, knows whether you're looking at it or not. So so we have to go through one zigzag here just to put things in place. So the first thing is, it does not mean that. It doesn't mean that, because if you think about it just from the most easiest perspective, is you as an observer seeing when it's both, which means that it's not the observer, right? So you see that sometimes it's this or that, which means that you know that sometimes the observer is present and it still is a wave, and sometimes the observer is present and it's still a particle, right? So what changes is not the person observing, there's a photon detector, and this is where it gets actually weirder than people realize. There's a device, which is just a photon detector, which is simply measures whether it basically decides where the photon went through which slit, right? And if the device is present in the room, but not on, it will be a wave. If you turn it on, it becomes two lines, which means it's almost like something about the wave knows that now there's a device that picks up on it, right? It's wild. So now it gets even weirder, but I want to say that there is an experiment that was done by Dean Radin. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but it was done in 2017 or 16, and they actually tested specifically whether the presence of a person influences the Dulles experiment, which is different. And they found, according to their data, that there is a standard, enough of a standard deviation to consider this something that we should look at. And the way they tested it is first with a meditator in the room. Then they tested that's supposed to be able to focus on just the whatever they imagine it to be. Then they did it with a person outside the room, because maybe what's influencing is some kind of a micro movement in the room. Then they did it from the other side of the world. So they had somebody who was really good at like meditating, i.e., focusing on the other side of the world, thinking about that particular thing where they know where it is, the location. In other words, they kind of like projected their consciousness onto it, which sounds like bonkers, right, to science. But then they prove that there's actually still the same effect. So you can look it up, Dean Radin double slit experiment. And Dean Radin is like a respectable scientist, right?
From the other side of the world.
Yeah. So somebody was in Australia, and then somebody was like, they were doing the experiment in a different place. And you can look at the details. Like, he has a lecture about it that you can watch, and he's talking about the details. And like, this is a serious scientist. This is not some, fringe. He is touching a lot on these kind of like, I guess metaphysical things, but he is, for all intents and purposes, he is squarely within like mainstream science. He's not one of these like crazy fringe scientists. And there are a few data points like that exist in the world. However, I want to say that the problem with bringing it to bear, as like you said, like being on CNN or being on Fox News or being on whatever, it's not the problem with scientists looking at this data. They were looking at the double slit experiment since what, the 30s, the 20s. It's a while. So we knew about this stuff a long time. The problem is the framing and the philosophical frame around what we think is plausible to assume. Early scientists in the quantum world did postulate that maybe it's consciousness, including very brilliant scientists like Wheeler and von Neumann. But slowly, because of the culture in science started leaning more towards like what you would call physicalism, they stopped entertaining this idea. And it's just a different kind of zeitgeist. It's a different kind of frame in which all scientists perceive it through, right? And for a long time, there was this, what I would call a problem. There was a culture in science of the shut up and calculate flavor. In other words, don't worry about what it means. Just do the calculations. And if it works and we can build something with it, great. If we can't, don't worry about it. And obviously science, I think if you look at humanity as a whole, science isn't really about just being able to build devices, even though some people would like to frame it that way. Science is just the project of human understanding, period. And whatever methodology you got to use, if you have to use people's perception to prove something, this should not be outside of science. And in fact, I would say that is one of the reasons why science is stuck in some ways, because it keeps trying to brush under the rug the experience or the actual observation itself of a person. So here I'm bringing back the idea that yes, the observer is doing something, but it's not as clear cut as just like looking at the data and then all of a sudden it changes. It's not a person that is changing it, it's the device that is changing it. But that is actually weirder, because that means that whatever wave function is happening, what is it that the wave function knows all of a sudden that makes it change its behavior? What is that thing? That thing nobody knows. That is the conundrum. What is this signal that is being transferred to the wave function to tell it now behave otherwise? That has never been answered, and that is really the question. And I do think that the laser is showing us something about us being able to perceive content beyond what we believe is possible at the moment. But you have a lot of explaining and convincing to do in the scientific community to even warm physicists up to this idea that they should entertain certain states of consciousness in order to know something true about the world. Because at the moment, the perception is, if you can't have an external device that can verify the data, it does not count as science. Let's just out the gate. That's just like how the that is the the
I
common.
wonder if AI will help with that eventually with the speed that technology is moving. If you could hook somebody's brain up and start gathering data directly from the brain.
Oh yeah, I always say that an advanced version of Neuralink is really the only game in town when it comes to proving this ultimately, because so you nailed it. Convincing scientists that this is a better way to go is going to take much longer than an advanced version of Neuralink to develop, in which we'll be able to just record directly from the cortex, and that will allow you to basically just like, hey, here's what we're all seeing. We can agree it's the same thing now. Also, you'll be able to stream it probably into some kind of a AI that will basically be able to tell you if wait, why does it keep? That will be able to probably analyze the data as well. So that is actually a much faster way there.
Yes.
And
It's just it's wild. Like there's some science. Hey, explain the placebo effect. Like you could tell somebody they're taking a pill, and it won't be a pill, and their body will be like, "Yeah, this is a fucking pill. Go to work," and then it works. How is that possible? Or confirmation bias. If you're looking for a car, let's say you want to get a new Lexus, your brain will selectively now see more Lexuses on the road. It just makes room for it. The brain sees what it wants. It's crazy.
Well,
Yeah, it's
there you go. Yeah, no, well, it's a little different than actually. Maybe you're right. Maybe it's not even different. So what the thing with the placebo, I always say the same thing. The reason it's crazy is because it's not just that there was some kind of a data about something and you weren't paying attention to it because your brain has to focus on a particular sliver and now you focus on more on that. It's literally sometimes fixing something physical in the body. Now, there's actually much more crazy examples with, I don't know if you're familiar, but there's some examples, and this is documented. This is not some made up urban legend. This is documented. There's some extreme cases of what is it called? Multiple personality disorder, in which there's physical characteristics that change in people when the other personality is present, including eye color, scars that disappear and reappear, voice that changes completely from a male to a female, which is not should not physically be possible.
Have you seen the movie Split?
Remind me?
Split.
No, remind me what the movie's about.
Oh, it's about this actor he has extreme personality disorder. Yes. He has, I think, 17 different personalities, and they're all exactly like you described. And the acting is so good that he nails every single one of them.
Wow.
And one of them kidnaps some kids. And another one is like a 6-year-old. So the kids have to try to, I don't want to tell you about the movie. It's a fucking, I think it's a 9 out of 10 with Shawshank Redemption being a 10. That is your next watch because
all right,
you have to watch that movie.
Okay, Split, my next movie, absolutely.
Yeah, Split is crazy.
So just so you know, yeah, so just so you know, this is real. This is real. And so that if that does not tell you that there's something about the mind that we do not understand, and I agree with you. When the problem that I have with the placebo effect is when smart doctors say the word just before the word placebo. They say just placebo. And I go, what do you mean by just exactly? You don't fucking know how that works. You don't know why 30% of the time when somebody's convinced of something, all of a sudden it becomes good. And by the way, if you make it more aggressive, there was one study in which they opened people up, they cut them open. There was some kind of a heart procedure that is like much more than just like taking a pill, right? And then they would open them up and sew them back up. And what they discovered is that in the people that they were the placebo group, in which they just opened them up and sewed them back up and they didn't do anything, the placebo effect went up to 52%. So because
they were healed.
Yeah, because it's much more aggressive. So in other words, it's much more like, I'm convinced that this must work.
Bias. The body has physical proof. I know exactly what you're talking about. The doctors came in the room and they're like, this is great news. You're healed. Just be careful of the wound. Everything worked perfectly. And their bodies were like, okay, I guess we're good now. What the fuck?
Yeah.
If the medical community, it would shut down a multi-billion-dollar business if people really started using their mind, drinking water, going outside. You could turn off the hospitals and the pills so quickly that it would shut down one of the most valuable industries on the planet. The medical industry is crazy. So that's why, I feel like every time I talk about this, someone's going to come to my house. Because I've already had multiple videos removed that were going viral. That I was like, oh, you could heal this with that. There was a guy that went to jail in New York for selling apricot seeds.
Oh, I've heard about this.
Multiple cancer patients, and they locked his ass up. Instead of being like, how are you doing this? They're like, oh, you can't be doing this. You're cutting into profits.
Interesting.
But I think the simulation is, I don't know, I'm convinced it's a simulation. It's too weird. Like, look at our two presidential candidates. They're both.
It's insane.
What the fuck is happening? There's no way this is like, there's no way this is not, there's no way. This has to be this whole
from all of America, these are our best examples. And you have you have brilliant, it's kind of common, when people kind of like make fun of like, oh, Americans are stupid. I'm like, no, they're fucking not, bro. There's a lot of very smart people in this country. And the fact that these are the candidates that we like, it's almost like the simulation throws stuff at us as a hint, and it's kind of going, okay, let's see if they're gonna like figure out that something is afoot if we do this. And then you have like Trump as president. They're like, and nobody like bends an eye, right?
It's like a severe, like a sense of humor. Like, check this, watch this. Like,
yeah.
Like, check this out. I'm gonna do this guy again. I'm gonna do that. Like,
the what's her face? The went viral. The breakdancing girl from Australia, right? It was like, dude.
I think I'm the only Raygun fan there is.
Dude.
I was like, oh, she's doing it. And my wife is black, and she was like, she's not doing it. I promise you, she's not. I was like, it looks like something's happening. Like the thing. I was like, oh shit. I enjoyed the shit. I watch it every day.
It's no, seriously, but like, how do you like if like this is one of these instances where the simulation goes, all right, they have to wake up at that point. They gotta go like, come on, like this. How is this in your biggest sports event? You gotta know that this is all just a game.
He took somebody's spot that was actually talented.
Yeah, and I actually heard this that she basically did. So her husband apparently is the head of the team, right? And then they basically did a lot to actually suppress other teams. So that's just like obnoxious, of course. But this is it's interesting. I wonder to the point of like getting canceled and all that stuff. The fact that like I told you before you in the beginning, I don't know if you noticed, but Richard Dawkins's Facebook account was deleted because he said this. He said the same thing you said, right? So now think about that for a second. You voiced an opinion about a contentious subject, which means that, of course, the population splits quite a bit on talking about this stuff, which is the norm in any healthy society. But somebody decided that this is not a topic that is under discussion, even though it obviously is, right? And then they decided for everybody, this is not going to be something we're going to be talking about culturally. And then, so I always wonder whether the simulation is, I always call it lowercase matrix and capital M matrix. So you have the lowercase matrix, which is what most people mean by matrix, which is they mean by, big pharma, the government, news networks that lie to you, all the layers of confusion that are being implemented and concocted behind closed doors, right? All of that kind of stuff. And then we're talking about like capital M matrix, like straight up computer program that we live in. Like that's different, right? But I wonder how much of them connect. So like I wonder how much of these impulses that the woke mob has, how much of that is truly coming from some kind of a higher layer, and how much of it is just they don't even know what's going on, and they are actually the ones that are about to be rebooted. So like I'm not really sure. It does feel that when you get to this level of craziness with things, we just accept them because they're happening. But like if you like truly like it's a small thing, but if 20 years ago you would put what you I don't even know her name, like Ray something, right? The Ray Gun, right? If 20 years ago, and I'm being serious, if 20 years ago you would show me that and you'd be like, oh, this is going to be in the Olympics, I'm like, no, that's an SNL skit. Like for sure there's no way, right? There's no way. And it is. So I really feel like when things get that crazy, it's almost like a sign that we're coming to some kind of an end to something. Hopefully, there's a new beginning or something that is beyond that point.
Did you see the news clip? And it was every news clip from every county in America, and they said exactly the same thing.
Oh yeah.
It was on Joe Rogan, they're saying the
Mhm.
exact same thing.
Yeah. But well, I mean, to be honest with you, that was actually not that crazy to me because it is. If you think about how it works, you do have like some kind of a general script that they're all kind of like they need to agree on in order to generate the same amount of clicks. So to me, it's more of a product, not of some kind of an evil cabal behind the thing. It might be, but to me, it's a much more plausible. It's just if you know that something works, it's kind of like all the cars, the mid level cars, all the sedans, they're kind of the same. Like it's because it works. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. You don't need in fact to voice a dissenting opinion about a particular topic will simply send your news network actually down the drain as far as clicks and views. So it's actually much less. It's much less beneficial for you to do that. Now, don't get me wrong. That's fucked up. Like that's not the system we should be living in. The whole point of
This is how it works. Yeah.
yeah, and this is the point. It is the point that was made very, made a lot. I'm not saying anything new here, but the whole era of like Walter Cronkite, like that's just dead. Like that's not like somebody who's like truly like an investigative reporter. I'm gonna break the case. Like that just doesn't exist anymore.
I have 6% battery left, so I want to get to your questions. I don't want it to die on you.
No, of course.
ADD, I was doing like 12 different things. I forgot to charge my phone.
No worries, brother.
I can't reach my thing over there.
No worries. So I wanted to ask you about that point. So first of all, everybody should go and follow you. Lakota has a great channel. You're very funny. And I do like the fact that you do have a lot of silly content combined with some points of view that you're making. And it's always done with such great humor, and you bring everybody into your personal life, which is amazing.
I sincerely appreciate that.
Yeah, no, really, man. Like I really appreciate your content. What when you make your content, right? You're really good. You really know how to make things go viral. You understand kind of some of the thing. What makes you? How often do you go? Okay, this subject is important enough. I want to make a stand. I want to say something that I feel like is actually a little bit more, or like, do you ever make that calculation?
It's very random, but it'll hit me like right in the chest. Like the assassination attempt, none of it was right. It hit me hard. Mike Tyson fighting got me really excited. If I feel genuine excitement about something, I can't help it. I feel like I have to share it. I've been in social media for about 15 years. I started on the Vine app, and I had about 400,000 followers there, and I got really good at, and I went out and learned like how to make content with some of the biggest Viners in the world, and they taught me the ins and outs of it. And then Vine got shut off. I was devastated. So when TikTok came about, I definitely dismissed a massive opportunity because when it was Musical.ly, they were like, "We're going to verify you. We're going to push you up. You got to just do this." And the people that did that all have like 30 million followers now. But I dismissed the app because it was like a dancing app. So I was a bit late to TikTok, and I'm really grateful now that I just passed 340,000, I think, and I'm trying to get back to 500K.
Oh, you lost followers because of that?
When? What's that?
From the 500,000 is what you had on Vine, is what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. Got it. Wait, and you deserve every single follow, man.
I lose momentum.
The what?
Like my account will not get any views for the next week, and that's fine. I stop looking at the numbers. I tell people that are trying to get into social media, post what you're passionate about, have good lighting and good audio, and do it every single day, and never look at the numbers until 1 year is up, and then you can turn around and look and see what happened. But I see too many people who are like, "Oh, I did 3 videos and it didn't work." Of course not. There's an ocean of people trying to do the same exact thing. The only thing that will separate you is consistency. Just keep doing it, because people will fall off. People will stop doing it. I promise. People will definitely stop.
Yeah.
No, social media is a big part of my life, even though it is definitely one of the most toxic and dangerous things on the planet. And I make my kids aware of it. And none of my kids are going to have social media until they're way older, unless it's like very strict. I mean, it's digital crack. It really is. It's customized digital crack. It's highly addictive and it's highly dangerous. So I feel bad sometimes contributing to that because I know people are going to be on the app because of me sometimes, and I know I can't stop either. I'm not a very tiny part of a massive.
Yeah. Is it true, by the way? One side comment is that one redeeming quality about TikTok in particular that I actually didn't know about. I was telling the listeners the other day. I felt like a geezer that fell out of nowhere. I was telling my fiance, I was like, "Oh my god, they added a STEM page flow, whatever it's called, feed, right? A STEM feed." And she goes like, "It was always there." I was like, "What? The TikTok always had STEM the feed?" And she's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Oh, that's awesome." Like, I mean, at least there's something, you know what I mean? Like, Instagram doesn't have that. Instagram basically, it's just like it's kind of crazy. It became, at first I thought it was like, wait, am I not noticing that I'm doing something about the content that is keep sending me the suggestions, like all this, like essentially porn, basically. And I was like, and then some other guy friends was like, dude, did you notice that they literally put like, I have a regular feed and then all the suggestions, it's all just like naked chicks. And they get, I'm like, dude, this is insane. Like what, like, I'm like, it's not that I even find anything wrong with that, but it's like, that's not why I'm on Instagram. Why is this like and what if I'm like a 16-year-old? Huh? Yeah, exactly. And yeah, it's just a weird. So I guess it's at least in TikTok you have like the STEM feed, which is kind of cool. But I want to ask you, like, by the way, is that true? I only recently discovered this. Is that true that TikTok basically takes like 75% of your revenue essentially in the end because they kind of take a share from whatever is even from the way when you're trying to withdraw the money or something like that? Is that true?
No.
No. Okay.
Not at all.
Okay.
There's two ways to get paid. You can do TikTok Shop, or then you can do a 1 minute video. And like a 1 minute video that gets, I had one get like 6 million views. It was a minute long, and it paid me like $3,400.
Not bad.
I thought that was huge. And when I went to withdraw it, there was a transaction fee, and then it hit PayPal, and there's another fee. And at the end, I still had 3,300.
Okay. So it didn't take, because somebody told me that like every time, yeah. So like from the withdrawal, they take another 25%. So that's not true. Okay, great.
25. No, it's a small percentage. It's
Got
not
it.
even 10%. It's
What-
like it's kind of like a PayPal transaction fee.
What is the 1 minute? It has to be exactly 1 minute, or anything above 1 minute, you mean?
1 minute or above.
Or above, okay.
It qualifies. You have to join the creator program.
Yeah.
If you have a video longer than 1 minute go viral, you are going to get paid. And you can also go on, which I'll text you these things, because with some of your topics, if you accidentally go viral and it's over a minute and you're in the creator program, you will wind up like just cashing out thousands of dollars. So,
Oh, they actually canceled. I don't know why, and they never explained. And I tried to email like the 2 videos of mine that did go viral. I think they owed me nothing big. They owed me like over $1,000, maybe $1,200, and then it just disappeared. Like they just never, like it just disappeared. I don't know if is it possible that somebody complained or like flagged it or whatever, and that's why?
no, even if it got flagged, unless I've gotten plenty of notifications saying this doesn't qualify. They do things like that, like they'll take your video down or say it doesn't qualify. That's why it's like fishing. You don't know what you're going to catch. You just got to keep doing it.
Yeah.
And if you're in the creator program and you go viral, it could be crazy money.
Okay, what do you have before your battery completely runs out? I want you to plug your channel a little bit more. What do you have? Is there a particular content that you're focusing on in every period of your creative journey, or you just kind of go with whatever feels right to you in the moment?
I like covering sports and politics a lot because it's widely entertaining. But I've actually gained followers, and this I thought was really rare, from TikTok Shop, because people hate advertisements. So I make it an absolute challenge to make edgy, entertaining shop videos, and people are liking them. And some of them are getting millions of views.
Wow.
And producing income. Like some of them are producing thousands of dollars per video.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I'll do 10 videos, and 8 of them will do $0, and 1 will do $20, and then 1 will do $2,000.
That's amazing. Will you basically wait? Somebody like a company sends you like a product, and then you just advertise that product, basically?
Well, I feel like a fucking king. I really do. I'm so spoiled. Every day I scroll through a list of potential partners. I'm like, no, and then like they'll send me they send me the light. They'll send me a fan. They send me colognes. They send me anything that I say yes to. They send this thing is cool.
That is cool.
Responds to your voice after you turn it on. It'll respond to your voice and move around. It's called a symbiote. People call it a venom. It just bounces, and when I stop talking, it'll drop.
That is cool.
Yeah, it only responds to my voice. I love. So I only promote things that I like. So if people are offering me things all the time that I don't like, I have to say no to 90% of the stuff. But when I say yes, I get it. Today I got a leaf blower. I already have one, but I'm gonna make a video, and then I have a whole side business I listed on Facebook Marketplace. And then I have every day I have people coming to my house handing me money.
That's
If
amazing.
it's 200 new, I'll sell it for $80, and it goes that day. I'm not trying to make future. I'm trying to give somebody a really good deal because I got it for free, essentially free. So yeah, TikTok Shop. There's a ton of money to be made,
Amazing.
but it's also very frustrating because they violate your account for crazy little things.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, hold on. It's okay, brother. Well, listen, I hold on. Oh, yeah. Okay, I did the puzzle
I got
thing there.
2%. If you have one more question, I have 2%.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. So yeah, I guess my main questions were about your creative process. I wonder, do you? And I think that what really captures, at least what I really like about your content, is that you don't seem to take yourself too seriously. You make it very light and entertaining. Are you like this also in real life? You kind of pretty laid back about things.
Yeah, I'm a U.S. Navy veteran with PTSD and a list of medical problems, and I've been through hell and back. And I heard something one time that really, really helped my entire life, and it was so great. And the guy said, "This helps. This should help everybody. In 100 years from now, you and everyone you know, you and everyone you know, you're all going to be dead. You don't have that long. Enjoy the moments. Not only are you alive, you're on Earth. That's the best planet. You landed here. Whatever this is, enjoy the shit out of it. And the only thing that matters is really, honestly, your health and your relationships with other people. The fucks that you give about anything, they have to leave right now because nobody's going to think about me tonight. Not even if I get 50 trillion views, it goes away. Everything in everyone's mind goes away. Your neighbor's not thinking about you. Your friends at work aren't thinking of. No one gives a shit about you. If you're lucky, you will find one person that might think about you sometimes. I'm happily married. I found my wife, and she thinks about me sometimes. I think about her all the time. I'm literally obsessed with her. But if you're incredibly lucky, you might find one or two people that will actually think about you and respond to you. And my grandmother said, in your lifetime, you'll be lucky if you have 5 friends, since from the time you're born and then you're 90 and die. If you have 5 people that would actually call you on your birthday and show up if you need it. I have 340,000 followers. I have 4 friends, and it's nothing matters. None of it matters. None of it matters. Nothing matters. Make money, drink water, be nice to people. Try to anyway. I have a little thing I do where I go to Walmart and I try not to want to choke people. Because normally when I go to Walmart, I'm going to choke the shit out of them. So I'm trying to be nice. Well, it doesn't work. Don't go to Walmart. Stay out of Walmart. That place is a fucking... I don't know what the simulation puts there or why or how. It's just everyone is 600 pounds and it's a fucking problem. What is that, baby? Yes. There she is. She's thinking about me. Anyway, thank you for having me on.
Absolutely, brother. You're an absolute pleasure. Please keep. How you doing? I'm doing
That's
amazing.
One person that might think about me sometimes is right there. All the time.
I know I love when you put your wife and your relationship in the videos. It's amazing.
You said you got engaged?
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
What does your fiance think about your theories?
Oh, she was very, very skeptical. And then she saw it for herself. So she was like, oh, okay. And she's Jamaican, but she's like a Chinese descendant Jamaican. And
that's the coolest shit I've ever heard.
that is the coolest shit. She's amazing. And she I don't know if it's because she's Jamaican, but she's very laid back about everything. So it's kind of hard to get her into like a wow state, but she was definitely wowed. So there was a big, there was some tension in the house when I told her about it. She couldn't see it yet, but then after that, she was, you know, she knows that she knows me. She understands that I wouldn't be saying things just on a whim, you know. So she believed me, but it's very different, kind of taking your word for it versus, you know, really seeing it. It really
I took
separates it.
the word for it immediately. I have a knack for just like a superpower to dismiss bullshit immediately. And my wife is like, we've tried it. Like we went to malls. I'll figure out if someone's lying. I'm really good at it. The fucking second I saw your face, I was like, he's telling the truth. He's telling the truth. 100% jumped off the page. You have to promise me something though. Promise me, Danny. If you find the cheat code for money or like weight, I know there's cheat codes in this bitch.
You'll be one of the first ones to know.
I need to know, like, DM me and be like, this is the code. Just do this and type this in or say this out loud. I don't care what it is. My mind is open to it. And I know there's codes.
It'll be hilarious if it's like something like in Mortal Kombat, you know, you have to turn to the right like 2 times.
Up, down, left, right. Yep.
Yep, you basically have to do this. So before I let you go, I would say this. I don't know if it's going to cut off in the middle. That's fine. But right before you came on, the people here were talking about RAND organization. Apparently, it's some kind of a thing that tells you that you're supposed to get $1 million if you can prove anything supernatural. I was telling them that one of the challenges, which is the same thing I was telling you, was to basically communicate the metaphysical fact that you actually have to take experience into account to accept the fact that there's something else is going on here. But ultimately, I'm a big believer that, you know, the scientific method has to be involved, and we have to put it through the ringer, so to speak. And ultimately, there's something about the kind of vibe that you're emanating, for example, which is that, again, people that it's what Carl Jung called irreducible rascality, which is that the people who act too righteously, it's usually the people that don't understand that they themselves can be a piece of work very often. And these are also the people that point a lot of fingers at all the other people. And I deeply appreciate the style and the fact that you are actually exhibiting and embodying this kind of attitude, which is like, hey, nothing is that serious. Find the people you love, find the love of your life, raise children that you love, and just try to not be a piece of shit. That's really, I really appreciate that about you, man.
Yeah, that's more than most people.
Amazing, man. Well, okay. Well, thank you for the perfume. And if you ever want to come on again, please come on. You're always welcome here.
I'll do it when my account is less restricted. Yep, exactly.
Amazing, brother.
We're not going to list up. This one is strong. Jesus. All right. I'll see you, Danny.
See you, brother. Good to see you.
All right.
Bye. All right. So that was Lakota. I highly recommend you follow his channel. Is hilarious. I don't know if you know any of his content, but it's really funny. Okay, now that we have a lot of comments, so let me see if we can hop back on in the saddle and go back to regular programming. Okay, let's see if we can find even the spot. How you doing, the business? Send you an invite per usual. If you want to come on, you're always welcome. We hope to fund more experiments. Viewers share. Oh, when I do the molecule, I see looks like hologram all around me. Only Dan's. Great handle. Mind of their own. Why he getting suspended? Oh, there you go. I think we're back to where we're supposed to be. I see aliens when I do send molecule. Take it back. Agree with Lakota. There are ways to control this experiment. That's the thing. You never feel like you'll forget it while there. Oh, okay. So these are all comments basically about the experience. Show me how the universe works, but it won't let me keep the knowledge. Yeah, that point, by the way, is actually very interesting about them kind of not deleting, but it's almost like you can't remember on purpose because some of this knowledge is simply, you know, it can't really be applicable here. So why waste brain power to retain it? So when you get back, which one? wait. What was the business? What did you mean by we're trying to eat dinner? What was he saying? That Turn your crazy TikTok BS off. What are you talking about? What you see is presented to you by multidimensional things. Danny Stack is the first step towards retaining whatever knowledge is there. Actually, that's a really good way of framing it. I didn't think about it in these terms. You can see code without the laser. Yeah, so I'm not a psychologist, but I do play one on TV. Wait, I play a psychologist? Wow, I'm so confused by the comments right now. I can see the code without the laser. Just so you know, Only Dance, this is the most common email I get. And I would claim that the code that people see without the laser is a different code, or it's a different layer of the code because it's malleable. You can actually change the content of it. What you see on the laser cannot be changed no matter what you do. At least it seems that way at the moment. They did something to my left eye. What did they do to your left eye? They also did through dental experimentation. Oh, we're getting into tinfoil hat content here. Then he's like an Albert Hoffman, but knows more physics and esoterica. Well, I'm gonna remind you that Hoffman was a proper scientist, and I'm not. Also, the cosmic surgeries are very relatable to those that have been in that space. They aren't ever. So I think they might be demons. Scientists will try and push this off pattern recognition, but we can prove it other ways. Doesn't have bandwidth, I disagree with. Universe Sim is just being efficient. Remind me to get back to the pattern recognition point at the end, Cal. I want to touch on that. For some reason, when I look at trees, they wave at me now all the time. Only Dance. I don't want to alarm you, but it sounds like borderline schizophrenic. No, I'm kidding. It's probably true. I think trees are waving at us. It's happened in the past. Those that have dabbled in the past get to the point. So perception turned on. Okay, you say nothing. Quantum entanglement has been proven. Are you talking about the quantum entanglement is proven? The business you mean to the extent that what I was saying about the double slit experiment? You're misunderstanding what observer means. We are talking about light moving particles. Just got here. What's up, Matt? Killing it. This sounds like the Global Consciousness Project affecting random generators. Riffing double slit. It's only about light moving particles when you try to look at them. What are we riffing? All right. Well, I don't know how far down the line I'm in, so I'm not really sure if Matt killing it, if my comments are going to be relevant. So let me get to the end, and then we can. I'm going to make sure that you guys didn't already address this. Go to Burning Man with multiple consoles and have thousands of people partake. Oh, you mean multiple lasers? Testing, proving. Yeah, that actually, to be honest, that kind of observation, mass observation, would be a big step in proving the theory, because if you have a bunch of people like all seeing the same thing, you're going to have a lot of explaining to do. Testing, proving, seeing the co-observer being involved or not. Film and all. The observer is not relevant in the double slit experiment, only light moving particles. Yeah, so Matt killing it, this is the point that I was making in the beginning. However, I would look into Dean Radin's experiment with the double slit experiment, in which he directly tested the involvement of an actual conscious person in a particular controlled way, in which he proved that there's enough of standard deviation there to take seriously the proposition that consciousness itself is actually, or something in people's focus on something actually is influencing the experiment, which is different than the way that the double slit experiment is usually done. Instead of individuals submitting videos of their reactions, have thousands all in one place to do it. That would be, Yeah, that would be insane. It's not consciousness that collapses the wave, it's the tool they use to measure it. Yes, only dense. This is something I was talking about in the beginning. I'm not sure if you were here for that part of the conversation. The observer is needed so far to see the code. The code is always there. Yes. I think electromagnet with a 3D party switch can prove it enough. Yeah, I think that idea with the magnet in the other room is actually a great way to do it. However, you do have to put the magnet around the diode, which means that you're going to have at least to have some proximity to the laser, unfortunately. It is, but we're looking to prove that. My favorite example of the placebo effect is Space Jam, when Michael Jackson gives all the tunes. Oh, Michael Jordan, not Michael Jackson. Requires belief. You can't prove belief. Okay, so I see there's a lot of comments basically about some of the specifics of what we were talking about in the conversation. No, so to correct something, Cal, I'm not saying that the magnet affects the code. I'm saying that it most likely will. I did notice that it scrambles the code when you put it on the magnet, but it is an inconclusive observation because maybe just the surface of the magnet itself is jagged enough to basically scramble the visual of it. I'm not sure. Let me see if there's any other comments that are of a different flavor, and then I'll jump back into the conversation. Neil on the head, Big Pharma. Wait, on the head. Big Pharma will do everything in their power to keep us sick. Depends on them. It's not traditional simulation. It may resemble something, but then it doesn't always. Ray Gun was just sad. She stole this one. Oh, wow. We have a lot of comments here. Was someone something already figured out? Sim. Wait, we have here Matt killing it. I am fairly confident this is base reality. That I would say this is a big false confidence. That shocks us anymore. True. Okay. All right, I went to the end because I think all comments are kind of like the same. I feel like most comments are of the same flavor, and I think we dropped in some viewers just because I was reading comments mostly. So I'm gonna start addressing the latest comments, and hopefully we can climb back up. Anybody who's still here, if you want to give it a few likes, just so we can pull a little bit more of the people in. Background in I have some background in physics, not enough to be considered a physicist. Obviously, it's a long way from that. But I always keep myself informed. I know enough to read a research paper, and I think my strong suit is to have a really good intuition and visualization of the some of the processes that are taking place. So, for example, to the extent that it's possible, I have a relatively easy time imagining an event horizon of a black hole, how it all happens. I'm really good at basically seeing mathematical relationships in my mind's eye. I have very good mathematical intuitions, and I have a really good overview of a lot of these topics together because I have a lifelong experience of being interested in these things on a slightly more technical level than what most fans would have. And because of that, I have a relatively easy time kind of jumping between these subjects and seeing how they might connect. But I'll be the first to admit that in order to truly get into like a serious scientific investigation about things that involve any portions of physics, you will need a lot more tools on board. So the way that I see my role is, because I can speak a certain speak, I can sound intelligible to scientists. My job is to get enough of a smart people interested in looking into these subjects and to take them more seriously. This is also why I'm very interested in divorcing this whole subject from. Thank you so much for the likes, by the way. Hello, 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 hello. That's a great handle. And basically, oh, it's not. I thought it was your handle. Hello, QRC. Funny. How are you? And because of that, I think that the best way for me to spend my time on this stuff is basically divorce this observation as much as possible from the psychedelic world and even the spiritual realm, but to communicate back into the scientific realm to say, hey guys, here's what I understand about your world. So it gives me a little bit of credibility. And then here's why I think you should look here. That's really how I perceive my role. It is Jesus. How are you? So that's to answer your question, Patricia. What is also great to see you. I always appreciate when you show up. What and actually from all the regulars, I would love to learn a little bit more about you. What is your Where does your interest lie mostly? Is it more around the spiritual world, meditation, scientific world, all of the above? And how deep does your interest in knowledge go? I would love to know that about you, Patricia. And the same goes to all the people that are here that are my usuals. Cal, I think you're out because you said you had to be attending some kind of a school thing. The business would be great. I'm a natural born psychic medium. Oh, awesome. And I'll be very open. I don't know what your actual name is, so I guess I'll call you according to your handle. KCR. Is Casey your name? Karen. Nice to meet you, Karen. Oh, not like the Karen, right? I hope not. So I'll be very honest with you, Karen. So before I say what you were saying, oh my God, we're in trouble. So I will be honest with you. Before I started, I don't know if you know anything about my content, or if you haven't, you should watch my videos after the ones that are pinned to the top, in which I'm proposing an experiment that I claim that would actually proves I believe in an actual simulation. Before I started interacting with this content and before I started diving deeper into what's going on, anybody who would tell me that they're, like, believe that everything is energy, or they're just like psychic or things like that, it's usually a thing that I would ignore or brush off or think it's nonsense. It's not that I don't think that there are things that we don't understand, is that I believe that all the people that are making these claims just don't know enough about physics, don't know enough about what we understand about the world. And it's kind of like a lazy way of trying to explain the external environment. I don't think that anymore. But I don't think that not because any psychic proved to me that they're psychic, but because I started seeing that there are certain patterns that you can actually observe. And I essentially found out a way to see it more often than not. And then I started noticing certain aspects of the world that I didn't notice before. And then I opened up to the idea that maybe some people are actually capable of interacting with that space. Does not mean that there's not people who are full of shit in that space. I'm obviously not saying you are, but it's an important thing, and I'm sure you're aware of it. There's some charlatans in that space. But I did meet enough people to know that there's a there there. There's actual people that with certain abilities. And I became a lot more sensitive to the fact that some people, when they're born with this ability, to them, it was just a natural thing. And in fact, that because I spoke to a few of them, very often what happens is that it was confusing to them when they were becoming teenagers or young adults, and then realizing that not everybody has these abilities, because they thought it's just what everybody sees. People who can see energy, people who can see beings without any substances. And then all of a sudden they discover that other people don't see it. And very often these kind of people told me that it's a shock. Like and then you don't know where to place yourself, because now how do I talk about this stuff to people who never saw it, right? So I became a lot more lenient when it comes to this kind of stuff. Tons of it's a lot of work, actually. Yep. And then I did meet. This is why I fully accept what you're saying, especially when it's said with with a very straightforward way. Wait, let me go through the comments. And then comments like you just made about quantum physics, for example. I will say that a lot of times people. Again, this is not spoken to you directly because I don't know you personally, obviously, but I am speaking to kind of like this chunk of the population, right? It's very often the case that when people more from the spiritual flavor use the word quantum, it is clear also that they don't really understand what is meant by that. Now, they might mean something very specific and concrete in that they perceive, but very often I find that they don't actually understand what is meant by that when it comes from the scientific side. And I do try to keep this like line in the middle where, it's a bridge and we translate versus attack one another. And to your point about you moving energy, I did meet a few people. In fact, one case which was kind of crazy. There was this woman that we were traveling the world last year, and we met this woman in Ibiza, and she literally came to my face and she did this to my face. She went like this with her hand, and I could feel, really feel, not like a little bit or no, I could feel a vortex like going on my face. It just went woo, and I was like, whoa. And then my fiance, I was like, you got to try this, and then she did it, and she was like, whoa, that's insane. So I know for a fact that certain people have abilities, and but I always encourage, I can only preach to the choir so much. I always encourage the side that I'm speaking to be more open-minded to the fact that there is something that they're missing on the other side. Let me see what we have here. My adoptive mother tried squelching it. You mean she basically brushed it off? Yeah, I mean, it's easy, it's easy to assume that position, especially if you don't experience these things on a regular basis. It's also one of my big challenges, that anybody who's not open to trying these molecules, or not open to do it exactly the way that I'm suggesting, if they didn't see it, the proof that I'm suggesting, you can't really communicate it with words, because every single thing you say about it is perceived by the individual listening through the filter of what they already know about the world. So if they've never experienced these things, it's exactly like trying to describe a color that somebody has never seen before, or sight in general to a person who's blind from birth, right? Nice girls don't talk like she said nice girls don't talk like that. Wow. Was that like was your mother a Catholic, or still a Catholic, or some religious connotation? Is that why? Hey, bud. I taste colors. Try explaining that. Well, actually, like again, I'm not for a second diminishing any of your claims. I am saying that tasting colors you can explain in terms of the brain. It's called synesthesia, and we can explain it in terms of the brain. Just basically, it's like a mixing up wires that you don't usually mix up. But people who with natural abilities and more sensitive to the spiritual realm, I would say that the more honest explanation would be, if you accept these things are real, that there's a cross section of the mind space that is happening on the spiritual side, and that influences the brain to actually do the rewiring. I think I was telling her secrets. So what kind of secrets are you telling? You want to tell us some secrets? And I take it that this was your ability from birth, right? I would assume so. Wasn't telling you to explain that. Wait, I wasn't telling you to explain. Oh, no, but you said try explaining that. I taste colors, try explaining that. So that's what that was what my response was for. That's what natural born means. Uh-oh. Are you going Karen on us? So to the point of, in the spirit of trying to keep the central channel alive, you said it was difficult explaining something. I'm a smart ass. You are a smart ass. Smart asses are very welcome in this chat. So you're in the right place. So in the spirit of keeping this midline alive, hey babe, I don't know, he's breathing heavily. You might need to go or something. We're training a little puppy. He's adorable. And in the spirit of that, in the beginning of the conversation, Cal was suggesting, what is it called again? The Rand Foundation, or the Rand, I guess it is by the Randy Foundation, which is basically a foundation that offers $1 million to anybody who can prove any extra physical abilities. And I remember watching this stuff. And again, I don't think that the attempt is actually to truly investigate if something of that flavor exists. It seems that they're much more committed to just disproving it. And when you're looking at things through that lens, you will never be able to prove it, because then you basically always suppress the type of data that is coming in, because you expect to see it in a particular way. And if you're not open to new modalities of understanding the world, that you can never truly get to a place where you will actually entertain. Yeah, I don't know if you know, but they basically start again, if it's the same organization, I'm not sure if it's the same one, but there was definitely an organization called, there was the I forget his first name, but something Randy, and he was a magician. And because he was a magician, he knew all the little tricks of how, a lot of these charlatans do what they do. I'll give you a few examples if you want. It is actually kind of interesting, which is a problem because they ruined it for a lot of people who have real abilities. Well, I don't know if it's fear-based. It's based on what we understand about the scientific method, which is a valid thing. The reason that you and I can talk right now is not because some witchcraft, but because somebody actually put a lot of effort into figuring out how to make this possible. So we should also be grateful for that. But Randy was actually a magician, and he got sick of people, which was actually the case. Fake psychics and people that were basically taking advantage of people, essentially. And he got sick of that because he knew how cold read works. And he knows he's not a wizard. He's just a magician that actually knows how sleight of hand works. And so one example of that, I don't know if you guys know, but the way that the trick with the stopping watch is done is just a utilization of a statistical fact. So basically, when a magician goes on TV and they go, "Hey, everybody focus right now," and then he'll say, "Some of you, your watch stopped right when we did that." So it turns out that statistically, it is always the case that in any given moment, a certain percentage of the population, their watch will stop at any given moment. And because it's on TV and there's millions of views, this was not possible with just 20 people in the room, but when there's millions of views, then by necessity, somebody's watch will stop in that moment. And imagine their surprise when somebody said that and all of a sudden their watch stopped. And even if it didn't stop exactly in that moment, it doesn't matter. While you were watching that show, your watch stopped, and he was talking about stopping your watch. So then they will phone in. They will obviously call and be like, "Oh my God," and that's how it works. There's a lot of other tricks like that. There's also, the tricks that have to do with understanding human psychology, with how you can plant ideas in people's minds, and then you can make them guess what you wanted them to guess. There's a lot of tricks like that. So this is where that guy came from, and he basically set up a fund. Originally, it was like $10,000 and $10,000, then eventually got to like $1 million. Where he's like, if anybody can prove their actual abilities under the conditions that I'm gonna put, they will get $1 million. And he's actually the guy that exposed Uri Geller on live television. And it was very embarrassing for Uri Geller, obviously, and he tried to sue him and everything. But he basically showed up on the Tonight Show when Uri Geller was trying to come and do his tricks. And because the problem with Uri Geller was that he was claiming that this is not sleight of hand. He was saying he has actual powers. So then Randy showed up and he basically manipulated his objects, and then he couldn't do the trick. And he got very embarrassed, and it was actually, well, it is very embarrassing. But my point is that it's important that we don't lie to ourselves. So the people with the real abilities, and which we do want to amplify, can actually exist in a framework that is encouraging the development of these tools. And actually people with the real abilities should want that more than anything, because they would allow their abilities to shine more and help more humans, versus people who lie to you about, talking to your dead relatives that then you pay them money for, and then you're basically exploiting their pain, which is terrible. So that's where he came from. And I don't know if this organization is exactly the same. I think it might be, but it would be cool to try actually present the laser to them. It would be interesting to see what they think. Sounds okay. Have they ever paid out to anyone? No, not that but nobody has ever managed to prove under that condition. You can look it up. The Randy Foundation, and even if it's not the Rand, maybe it is the same one. I'm not sure because I have to look into it. But for sure, the Randy Foundation was a thing you can just YouTube, and you'll see a bunch of videos of people coming in, and you can see they're full of shit, the people, right? So it's like there was that one guy that was saying that he could see auras, And again, these people were charging people a lot of money, right? And then he basically said, "Oh, okay, no problem." And then he brought him on stage, and he basically put 3 different people behind. He let him look at the people, and then he had to turn around, and then the people went behind a screen, so all you could see is their silhouette. And he's like, "Okay, well, because the claim is that auras, you can see them through walls and through, right?" So he's like, "Okay, well then identify the 3 people just by their aura behind the screen," and he obviously couldn't do it. So it's things like that. And listen, there's I think one of my regulars, Cal, said that he thinks they discontinued it, but I don't think they did. Why would they? I mean, it's a great little little project. So you should look into it. It will be great to see if you can prove one of your abilities. The Randy Foundation. Let me see. James Randi Educational Foundation. I think it's the same one. Let me make sure. American Grant Making Institution, founded in 1996. Magician, skeptic, James Randi. Yes. So the James Randi Foundation is what you want to Google. Randi is Randi. And the website that Cal was talking about was Rand, RAND, which makes me think that maybe it's the same thing, but I'm not sure it's the same thing. I would just do James Randi Foundation and see if you can find any website or anything about that. Yeah, if you get $1 million, we happy to have pointed you in that direction. That's awesome. You think I can be a referral fee? Awesome. That'd be amazing. Yeah, something to look into. It is interesting. So there's a scientist by the name of Dean Radin. Some of you are probably familiar, but he is a mainstream scientist who studies a lot of the paranormal, things. And he is the one that I was mentioning that actually did the double slit experiment in 2017 or 16. And he's the one that ran it in a way to try and actually prove that you can have consciousness, to see if consciousness is actually influencing it. Because the comments that were made before are true here on the chat, which is that the way that the double slit experiment is done, it doesn't actually imply that a conscious being is influencing it. It's not what it means at all. Like, I don't even know why people jump to that conclusion, because it is a device that is being turned on. But the way that he did the experiment actually proved that you have some data there of actual consciousness influencing it. He also discovered that people can technically see up to 10 seconds into the future. The way he did that was very clever. Yeah, he could definitely help fund the laser experiment. The way he did that is that he showed people, he first of all tested people to see what kind of images are going to be disturbing to them. And then he put them, connected them to a lie detector. And the reason that the lie detector is important is because it measures the galvanic response, which is essentially a small perspiration of your skin right on the surface of your skin that you cannot really fake. Well, you can if you're like a pathological liar and you can control your inner state to that degree, but most people can't. And that's why lie detector is so, it's so effective in some ways, because you have an emotional response to a particular question or proposition, right? So he connected them to this lie detector, and then he ran a series of random images. And then in the series of random images, he also injected some disturbing images that he already knew that are disturbing for these kind of people, right? So that was the control part. And then he ran this series, and every single time that there was a disturbing image, their galvanic response jumped up to a few seconds before that image was shown. So before the next image was coming on, they already had an emotional response to that image, which means that somehow or part of their consciousness can see a few moments into the future, essentially. What's up, Mac? Killing it. Welcome back. So Jeannie Einstein. You related to the Einstein? Because then you're definitely in the right place. So Dean Radin is another interesting person to look into, because even if you don't get into the James Randi Foundation, if you believe that you truly have these powers, which I at this point do believe some people do, Dean Radin might be also a good individual to contact, simply because he's in the business of trying to prove these things. And thank you for your comments before, Matt Killing It, about the double slit experiment. I'm not sure if you missed what I was saying about it. Orbs of the Gods. No, or maybe I have. Let's see. Orbs of the Gods. Wait, what? Book? I'm not finding a book. Olympus and the Orbs? Are you sure that's the name of the book? Radin? Oh, Dean Radin. Let me find him. No, Radin is Radin. Dean, D-E-A-N. Radin is R-A-D-I-N. I don't claim to have powers, but I've had some experiences can't explain rationally. Oh, okay. This is a great subject. I like this. You got it, Karen. Yeah, that double check the name of the book. The subject that is interesting to me, Patricia, is when you're saying I can't explain it rationally. I never understand this. So I can't. Truly, I don't understand this claim, right? So, for example, you have something that is like mind bending, or something that, on the surface of it, seem to be disconnected. Let's say crazy synchronicities. Why is it that you can't explain it rationally? I feel the only thing you need to do to explain it rationally is to just say what you experienced, and then say, I don't know how it happened. That's explaining it rationally, right? So like there's nothing that exists that is somehow completely discontinued from everything else. Otherwise, it's completely divorced from it in any influence, and then it's indistinguishable to the rest of the world from not existing, right? So as long as it has any continuum with the rest of what's happening, it always has a rational explanation, even if it's not something that at the moment we think is plausible. But it's, synchronicities are not irrational. There's some kind of a deeper mechanism of the world that is clocking what's happening and then somehow connects these dots. Now, in the context of a simulation hypothesis, it's very easy to explain, because if the whole world is a software, the software knows what's going on in every given point. And then explaining entanglement in a lot of quantum effects is actually very easy, because you just have a software that is registering all these things all at once. For example, I was able to hit a bullseye on a dartboard with my eyes closed twice. Mike Tyson did too. Why is that inexplicable to you? Well, either there's a few things here. One of them is you got really lucky. The other one is that you actually have the ability to perceive beyond just like your eyes, which is very plausible. And or that again there was some kind of a guiding force for some reason. But yeah, do Mike Tyson darts. It's actually a very fun video, because they challenge him on this like talk show or something. I don't know what it was. They blindfolded him, and he just went, and he was like so serious, and he just went, fuck. And it was right in the center, and then he goes, fuck, right in the center, and they just went ape shit. You were in a very zen state. There's your explanation. You were one with the bullseye. And I only saying it a little bit tongue in cheek, because I actually think that's probably what happened. You never play darts. Yeah, I think it's truly possible. There's a phenomenon called flow, which is a technical term. People also familiar with that from they usually call it being in the zone. And athletes get into this state a lot, but we're all familiar with it sometimes. You do work, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, you're just in this, like you're in the zone. You're just one with the task. Everything just flows. Everything is perfect. And it's actually a well-studied phenomenon, and it's a real brain state. There's a particular influx of different wavelength, of different brain waves that are functioning, and not just particular brain waves, but also the exact sequence of particular brain waves. Right? I don't remember what they are, but let's say it's alpha, gamma, whatever. Like you just go. It's almost like a melody, right? And when you play the notes properly, you get into the zone. And there's actually techniques. There's Stephen Kotler wrote The Rise of Superman. There's talking about this phenomena. It was discovered by Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, which is a mouthful of a name, but he basically discovered that it's a real phenomenon and you can get into it. So one of the things that when Stephen Kotler was studying extreme athletes for the book, he realized that sometimes you have like these inexplicable moments where one story in the book is, and all of the stories are real, right? So there was this famous climber, and no, it was not Alex Honnold, it was somebody else. It was a famous climber, and he went on this wall that he never climbed before, like a mountain, and he, I think, free soloed it in the middle of the night in the rain, and he never climbed it before. I don't even know why he attempted it, but when he was climbing, he said that he could literally see the next 3 steps that he had to do on a mountain he's never been before. So it probably, the whatever happened there with the darts was probably very similar. You live in the zone, Matt Killinger? That's why your name is Matt Killinger. And yeah, the book Flow as well. Wait, who was Flow written by Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi? Let's see. Who was it written by? Let's see. Wait, who wrote it? Oh, okay. Wait, no, that's an explanation. So who wrote the book? I can't see it here. Why can't I see the writer? Oh, it is by Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. Okay, that's why. The crazy name author. Karen is saying, wonder if it was a past life. What was a past life? For the climber, you mean? Yeah, that's possible. Or he was just connected to whatever the world is doing in that moment. I don't know. I feel like that's a much more likely explanation. The book I was asking about was Orbs or Heaven by Michael. The book I was asking, wait, Orbs of Heaven. Let's see. Cool cover. Planetary and stellar worlds, popular exposition of the great discoveries of the theories of modern astronomy. What is, you want to give me a little bit of I have a billion book suggestions and I'm open to them, but I always ask that the person who recommends them gives me a little bit of an insight of what it's about and also why they find it so interesting. Can you do that for me? Can you tell me why the book is so interesting to you? I mean, sure, Karen, to your point, sure, or both. But if you have one full explanation, why do you need the other one, aside from you wanting it to be the case? Let's say. I think you're fabulous, Alex. Well, thank you. I think you're fabulous as well. It kind of seems to be a scathing review of modern physics. What? Why would wait? No, why wouldn't you like to see? No, it's not that I wouldn't like. Is that if you have a full explanation, you don't need to add another one. So unless you have a reason to postulate there's another, functional thing, why would it matter? Oh yeah, no, it's not a preference thing. Like it's all possible, but I feel like depending on exactly what the world is doing, depending on if you're trying to actually construct something with it, right? If it's just a conversation, a postulation, sure, we can entertain everything. Basically, it's not full. Not full though. This. I see what you're saying. Yeah, no, definitely not against it. Just functionally seems to be. Depending on what you believe the world is doing, because if you think that you carry information from past lives, why would you? That particular task would stand out versus not everything else that is happening to him in his life. That would be my question about that. And to your question, Matt, killing it. Well, I guess I would have to, read the book, but I don't know if I will. My question to you would be: is this something that you believe? Like, do you feel that there's a problem with the way that modern physics is looking at everything we understand about at least space? Because the book seems to be talking about not about like theoretical physics, but about, wait, where did it go? Disappeared on me. Let me find it again. Orbs of Heaven. Let me do it again. It seems like the book is talking about the planetary and stellar world, so like astronomy, right? Why? I don't feel like we have a big problem with this with astronomy. There's maybe contentious things in theoretical physics, but let me see. A postulation may keep you from missing a loophole. Again, the new physics versus old physics. Okay. And by the way, that was a real question, Matt Killing it. If you want to answer that, like, what do you feel? Do you find an issue with? Certainly seems modern physics doesn't quite understand things need to scale. I'm not sure what you mean by that. Can you specify? And I'm not being difficult. I truly don't understand what you mean by physics doesn't quite understand things need to scale. Postulation may keep you from missing a loophole. Yes, but you don't need to postulate everything because then you're never going to get out of it. And also, Karen, to you, what do you mean by new physics versus old physics? Oh, quantum versus Newtonian. Okay. What about what about it? You can't have different rules of small things or big things. You can if there's something fundamental that you don't understand about a mechanism that ties both of them. So it's possible that whatever is happening on the quantum world, when it's moving to what we call classical physics, which would be Einsteinian, by the way, not Newtonian, but then you would have some kind of a moment where there's a phase shift or a phase transition, sorry, that changes the properties of the function. If you don't understand what is that moment of change, what is because all we know is about gradation. We don't know about an instance in which it changes, right? So in every phase transition, which is a transition of a state of either a material or process or irregularity in nature, there's always in all the ones that we do know about, like change of matter, let's say from ice to solid to gas, all that stuff. We understand the mechanisms by which there's what is this breaking point that is caused that then causes the whole process to phase transition. If there is this phase transition, because I don't know if you know, but basically the vision that we have at the moment is that the quantum world is the world. There is no other thing. So it's all quantum. It's just that the aggregation of all the quantum processes combined average out to what seems like the classical physics. So the reason that the macro ball, is not appearing and disappearing and doing everything that an atom does is because what a ball is a collection of a lot of quantum behaviors that together behave as if they're all here. Versus if you look at a particular instance of all the quantum behaviors that are together, they have a probabilistic nature. And by the way, that too deserves an explanation. But the deeper point there is that there's a quantum field that fluctuates and interacts with other fields, and the excitations in these fields appear to be particles when you're interacting with them, which, by the way, would explain why when you measure something, it appears as a particle versus always being a wave, because it is a wave in the field. So the wave is the distribution of the field. The field itself is not tangible to physical beings because physical beings are made out of the excitations themselves. So when the excitation happens, when you look at something, you interact with the excitation, and the excitation is by necessity a point, a thing that is happening, right? That excitation is what you're made out of and what everything that you know is made out of. So all of these excitations together appear as a pattern, as a world, but at the bottom, they're all quantum. The problem begins when you're trying to describe particular processes that have to do with why, for example, the influence of the strong force stops at this exact point. It's not very clear. Is it because gluons have a limited distance they can travel before they exert the force? Why is that? So a lot of these things are not very clear, right? When you're talking about the problem between what you call scaling, the problem is not scaling, is explaining what is this phase transition that is happening. But if you have that explanation, you will have a full explanation. I think that the reason that all these problems arise is because physics does not know how to put the observer into the equations, which is, you can't fault them for that. I can think of a way, can you? Right? Because we and I think it's because we have a frame of the world in which there's a physical world first, and then consciousness is somehow an arising property of matter. Now, I think that position is untenable at this point, and I think a lot of physicists at this point start to understand that. But that was the position that was being held until now. It is also the position and the focus that the focal point that allowed us to build what we see as the modern world. So again, I think we're all grateful for the fact that we don't have lions running after us in the streets, and that is all thanks to the physicalist perspective. We are transitioning now, pun intended, and there's a momentum to the old view of the philosophical position that most science took. And it's going to take a little while before people, really what it's going to take is that the new physicists are going to be born, and they're already going to grow into a world in which more of these ideas of consciousness being fundamental will be more acceptable, and it will be easier for them to incorporate this understanding into what we understand about the physical world. When that will happen, I think you will have a lot less of the problem that is at the moment. But all of that being said, it is also the case that in order to truly understand what the problem is, you have to study quite a bit, because there's a lot of technicalities there that are not what you think they are when you just listen to people like Neil deGrasse Tyson. It's not that simple. There's a lot of things that we understand, and they're very technical and very specific, especially when it comes to this interaction between the macro and the micro. And the main disagreement between Einstein's equations, the field equations, and the quantum world is the world continuous, or is the world quantized? So is it made out of parts, or is it made out of something fundamentally that is like a fabric that is you can't talk about it in terms of just this point versus this point? And both of them, by the way, still suffer from the same fundamental problem that at the moment, at least, nobody in physics acknowledges, because I think they believe it's already a philosophical question, not a physics question, and maybe it's even true. But the problem is, if it's all geometric pattern that cannot be broken down to parts, and you can only talk about the properties of geometry, which is what Einstein's position would be. Okay, where does it all originally comes from? And then you have the Big Bang idea, right? But you always have this problem of, okay, but what came before that? But what came before that? But what came before that? I think the only game in town that makes sense of it in a way that doesn't make your brain actually break, which is still makes your brain break in some way, which is the infinity idea, that it is infinite, and what is it called? The inflation is eternal, like Roger Penrose postulates, and inflation always going on. So it's not like you have a Big Bang and then something happens. Is that Big Bang is happening still? That's what dark energy is. And these ideas of infinite space, even though your mind can't wrap itself around, I think it creates a lot less of a problem, and it does not pretend to all of a sudden start from zero, because it says, well, it was always here, which is a different side of eternity, of infinity that you're pointing to. Either it came from something, and then you have to keep asking, where did that come from? Where did that come from? Where did that come from? Or you say it was always there, and then what does that even mean, right? So both of them break your brain in different ways. Ultimately, where the Einstein disagreed with quantum physics, which Einstein loses, by the way, because quantum physics is more fundamental than what we see, because space-time isn't a rising property of the quantum world. But you do have these moments where you have to talk about things happening in both realms at the same time, in extreme physics, like around black holes, where even the very small is being stretched, the influence of the very small is stretched because of the forces involved into macro effects. And then equations break down, which is what the singularity is. But I would submit to you, and I ranted for quite a while, so I'm going to look at the comments in a moment. I would submit to you that the problem is not that physics doesn't understand that it needs to scale, is that in order to understand what is this transitional point, it's a very difficult problem that the smartest people that ever lived working on. So to say that they don't understand that they need to scale is just not true. Of course, they understand what needs to be done. You don't know how to do it. And just so you understand, it is not an exaggeration to say that theoretical physicists are the smartest people on the planet, hands down. Now, that's a problem because there's not a lot of people that can police them. I don't know if you know this, but there's probably maybe less than 10,000 theoretical physicists in the entire world. Less than 10,000. Maybe it's a little bit more than at this point, from 8 billion people. So there's not a lot of people who can understand things on that level with them, and therefore they can only police each other. So it's a very small club. And the reason that they have to be that smart is because they literally have to do a lot of the postulations in their mind to a very deep degree. They have to kind of watch a lot of chess moves very, very far in advance, and they have to keep coherence to the whole framework, which they use math to do. But they also, in the end, have to land on an idea that can somehow pan out experimentally. Otherwise, it's just a pie in the sky idea, right? And there's infinite of these ideas that actually do make sense within the framework of themselves. But when you start trying to apply it to, plug it in and make it work with the rest of physics, you get into very, very serious and very difficult problems. Anyways, I went on for quite a while. Let me look at thank you that you like my rant. So let me look at your comments and respond. Oh, Matthew, what's up? What do you think? I love the comment. Okay, I think I caught up. You can't even wait. You can't have different rules. Oh, okay, that was the comment that set me off. So let me see. What do you think came first, 0 or 1 or the 0? 0. 0 was definitely first. I don't follow the idea that there is a fundamental difference between really small and really big. At the end of the day, it's energy, yes? No. I'll tell you why not. So, okay. So let me try and break it down in a way that it's not going to send me on another 10-minute tangent. I'm going to try and keep it shorter. Okay. So the question is, I don't follow the idea that there is a fundamental difference between really small and really big. I understand the challenge, but I think that the reason you're not following the idea is because everything that you know in your immediate environment, what your intuition tells you. So like, and your intuitions are only good at predicting things that you've interacted with before. And depending on the size of the ball made out of the full repertoire of all the experiences that you've ever had, you will be able to have intuitions about particular things and not others, right? So for example, the reason that you can think in 3D pretty easily is because you are 3D and you move through a three-dimensional space. But if you've never experienced, the whole idea of what's up? What's going on? Did you take him out, babe? I don't know. He's trying to rip the bottom of the. Maybe give him some treat or let him play.
Maybe his treat got lost.
Yeah. So, the whole flatland example, right? So if you have creatures that are living on a 2D surface, they can't entertain a third dimension. Now they can develop mathematics that tells them that the third dimension is possible, but they can't understand what it means to go up because it doesn't make any sense because they're not made out of that, right? In the same way, if I'm talking about the fourth dimension of space, not time, then you have a problem. You don't know how to think of it in terms of intuition. Like you can understand it maybe again mathematically, but not really, like not very strongly intuition. And even if you're capable somehow to bend your mind to somewhat to think of another spatial dimension somehow, you won't be able to go another one up. Like you won't be able to do 5 dimensions. Okay, you won't be able to. Now, some people want to claim that they can. They can't. Like I don't care how spiritually evolved you are. What you mean by dimension then is something very different, right? It's not a degree of physical freedom. It's not something like that. So the reason you having a hard time, I think, is because you trying to think of these super small spaces in terms of what you think small to be, like an ant or even a molecule or something like that. But I think that if you really postulate how small an atom is, your intuition is not capable of interacting there just in the same way that you can't really think of a 4th-dimensional space. And that, I think, where the problem begins. Now, if you work with the mathematics a little bit, not even on a very deep level, you stop developing some intuitions about what's possible. And then, even though you can't imagine these 4-dimensional spaces, if you can then build something in either a software or even a physical object that relies on the same mathematics that gives rise to that came from these ideas, then all of a sudden the world tells you that there's tangibility to your idea. So it tells you, yes, what you thought about this thing is true because here's a proof, because you made something that works, that is coherent, that works. The reason that we know for a fact that the quantum world behaves in this strange way is because we run experiments that show us that when we have a hypothesis like what it would do, and then we try the experiment and it does that. And if it doesn't agree with what we thought, then we have to reformulate what we think. It doesn't go the other way around, right? There's not, just so you know, there is no other theory that ever existed until now that makes predictions with higher degree of fidelity than quantum field theory. So what you hear about the standard model, which is the zoo of particles that we know about, there is no other theory, not just in physics, in general, any scientific theory, that makes predictions with more accuracy than the standard model, the quantum field theory. So we know it has validity, like a really big validity. The reason that your phone works right now is because of things we understand about the quantum world. And by the way, the reason that lasers are possible and we understand what's happening there is because of what we understand about the quantum mechanics, quantum field theory. Okay, we also know for a fact that if you throw a ball, it does this thing that we can calculate, right? And we also understand that Einstein is correct and Newton was not enough correct, because Einstein postulated that space itself is an actual thing, like an actual fabric of some sort, and not just a stage that everything happens on. And we proved it by measuring certain things. We can see time dilation happening. We can see that space-time literally curves, because we can see that light from galaxies coming from very far away warps around big chunks of big galaxies or chunks of clusters of galaxies. So we see these effects that are very real, that are only possible if Einstein was right about the way that space-time curves, right? So now you have a problem, which is what you're pointing out. You have the idea that the world at the bottom is quantized, which allows us to build devices, so we know there's validity to it. And you have the fact that on the macro scale, the universe behaves like this geometric pattern. Now you can say that the fabric of space-time itself is made out of these quanta, which is essentially what Stephen Wolfram is doing, and it also connects computation. But you're running into very technical problems that we won't be able to unpack in a TikTok live, and these problems are very fundamental. So you have this problem that even though you have proof over here and proof over here, there's something that is opaque to us in the middle, that we literally, the smartest people in history, couldn't figure out how to connect them. So that problem stands. And again, it's not a scaling problem. It's a fundamentally theoretical problem that we don't understand what is causing both of them to be this way on this scale and this way on this scale. I think one of the hints is that we never found the graviton. I think that's the one particle we never found. And in the standard model, you have to have a particle associated with a force. So if you can't find that particle, doesn't mean we won't, but if you can't find that particle, something tells you that you don't understand something about what gravity actually is, which according to Einstein is just the curvature of space-time. But again, they don't agree in other ways. So it's a very technical problem, but I assure you that the smartest people in the world are working on it. So actually, I don't even know if I answer your question, but I do think that the reason that you can't scale it down and bring your intuitions all the way down is because you simply can't comprehend this tiny scale. And I also approve that I'm incapable of making rants under 10 minutes. At the end of the day, it's energy. Yes, no, it is not energy. E equals mc squared does not mean that everything is energy. It means that what we see as matter and what we see as energy, they're the same fundamental thing, but it does not mean that everything is energy. It means that there's, and we know quite a bit about the mechanisms by which things without mass gain mass by the Higgs field. There's a mechanism by which it happens. Again, this stuff is very technical. But yeah, I would say that there is not even the most charitable reading of what we understand about physics that would land you in a place where everything is energy. If everything is energy, then nothing matters because it's all just like chaotic soup. The fact that there's any order in the universe tells you that it's not all energy. And by the way, this is something I always point out to people that are more spiritually minded. I don't know if you take this position. Something tells me that you would, but if you don't, please correct me. But spiritually minded people tend to, for example, always postulate that you create your own reality, right? So it's like it's just whatever you believe. It might be true on some level where there's a level of your perception that is, allowing certain events to unfold and not others. It's definitely possible, even very plausible, I would say. But it's not true to say that it's possible in all time frames. So even if you influence the world in some way, and eventually you'll be able to, if you concentrate enough, you'll be able to walk through a wall, let's say. Right now, you can't walk through the wall. And you should take that into account, which means that even if you take the position that the mind is all there is, still there is some kind of a regularity in the world that you call physical, even if it's solidified mind, right? That you can't bend at the moment. Right now, you can't walk through the wall, and you should take that into account. It's not all energy because the wall is made out of what we call matter, which on a physical level, it behaves very different than what energy is doing. And yes, you can release all the energy from the matter and you can convert physical matter to energy, but it does not mean that all of it is energy. It's not the same statement. And in fact, there's one example that I use, even though everything is like this, but this example brings it home for me. If you guys don't know, when they launched Hubble originally, the original telescope, there was a problem with the images. They all came back blurry and they couldn't figure out what happened. And then the scientists in NASA figured out that what must have happened, and it couldn't be anything else, by the way, which is amazing. But they figured this out, that there was a slight angle change, probably shifted in when it was going to space, of one of the mirrors, because one of the things that was required for a really clear image is that the way the mirrors were aligned. So then they had to send astronauts to actually fix it, and they went up there and they fixed it. They moved the mirror by like a little bit, and then it fixed the images. So it shows you that the physical world is insisting on certain things. So like, doesn't matter how much you would wish for it or how much you would want for it. If you wouldn't move this mirror physically, the images would not be sharp. It's just how it is. And that should also be taken into account. We can explain larger physical movements by observing smaller things, and it will line up if you remove theory based on theory. I think you're misusing the word theory here, Matt Killing. Theory is all you have. Theory is the explanation as to what's going on. It doesn't mean an assumption. I'm sure you heard this before, but it is true. So it's a theory in physics does not mean it's an assumption. Theory means if it's a valid theory, it's proven. There's no higher rank for information than theory. That is the highest you can go. Theory means just the story that explains how it all connects together. That's all it means. So theory is not based on just an assumption. a theory is based on a lot of observations, and these observations together, there's a story that threads all of them together. That story is the theory. How the force that holds an atom together different than the one holding the solar system. It's very different. What holds the quarks together is gluons. It's the strong force, and it's very different than gravity because atoms don't behave like this. So see, this what you're saying right now is actually a problem of the educational system. They taught you wrong, and it's understandable because the model of the atom that looks like a solar system is a heuristic. It's a visualization method to make you understand kind of what's going on, but it's not really what's going on. So imagine that there's like an ocean, right? And imagine that the ocean contains a lot of different kinds of water. It's almost like it's hard to imagine because the ocean is just water, right? But imagine if somehow the ocean contains a lot of different kinds of liquids, not just water, and they don't just make one super liquid. They somehow still stay separate, but they overlap. And where it waves, all of these fields, where they overlap enough to create perturbation in each and every point of one another, these things in our space look like particles. They look like percolations, like things happening. Okay, and these fields, these oceans, are the actual like fundamental substance. Now, I agree with you that you still have to explain what the substance is eventually, but this is so far the best theory we have. And these percolations, they give rise to all the processes that you see. And the idea that the atom is like a solar system with electrons going around is simply like, it's just not true. It's not true. Like, this is what I'm saying right now is not contentious. It's not someone's opinion. It's just not true. You don't have a solar system like situation. You have fields that interact with one another. The excitations of these fields are the electrons you see, are the protons you see, are the neutrons you see. And deeper in the proton, you have quarks, which are these excitations, and they are interacting with another field that is giving it the command to glue together. Now, this is where it gets highly technical, and just the intuition of trying to think of it like an engine of a car just doesn't work, because there's a lot of properties of this situation that are not twists. It doesn't work like that. There's properties and qualities to it that are, first of all, they're in order for you to truly create an image of it in your mind, which is possible, I think, actually, you have to understand the technicalities of these functions to a very high degree, and then you can build somewhat of an image. I think there's a little clip of Sean Carroll talking about it on Joe Rogan, where if you do Sean Carroll, Joe Rogan, Adam, probably it will find like this short, reels, YouTube reels, and there you have a little image that I think kind of delivers the point, where it's a probabilistic distribution of where the particle can potentially appear around the nucleus of the atom, but it's not like there's a particle at all times, an actual particle going around. That particle doesn't exist. There's fluctuation of the fields, and we can calculate where the fluctuations are more likely to cause the particle to look like it's there. That's the best you can say about that. So the image, you have to get rid of the image that everything is mechanical and moving like this. That only happens as an impression we have on our level of emergence, on the physical level that we're at. But fundamentally, it's these fields that are actually moving the whole thing. Black modern physics would say, wait, black modern physics? Everything is nothing and nothing is everything. Why the observer is perspective, not perception? Because you don't have to have a perspective to have a perception. I don't know. I'm sure, again, as somebody who's very spiritually endowed, I'm sure you're familiar with the non-dual state. And if you've experienced it, you would know that in a non-dual state where there is no self, there's just the room, you don't have a perspective. Or maybe we're just using the words differently here, but there's just perception. The perception of this color. There's just perception of something purple or something round, but you don't have a perspective. You don't have a unit in the middle that is observing. There's just observation. So that's why I would say perception is much more fundamental than perspective. Oh my God, this is okay. This is hilarious. So Matt Killing It gave Patricia a response, and Patricia's last name is Black. The way I read that, because he said Patricia Black, modern physics would say yes. What I read is Patricia, full stop, Black modern physics would say yes. I was like, what's Black modern physics? Everything. Well, I would say everything can't be nothing. It's everything too. Yeah, I think this is just like a linguistic game that actually doesn't make a lot of sense, Karen. I'll be honest. Can you explain the 0 point? People use 0 point in a lot of different contexts, so I'm not sure what you're referring to. Let's see what Google comes up with as a first point, and then I can tell you what I think about that. You're talking about 0 point energy? Give me 1 second. All right, let's see. So I'll keep going down the comments in a moment, but in short, if you meant something else, I'll read it in a comment at the end, Patricia. But if you do mean 0 point energy, it is the minimal energy required to make the quanta actually appear. In quantum physics, you can have an excitation of the wave function, and only when you have enough of an excitation, it's almost like a I don't know if it's going to be too misleading, but it almost is like action potential in the brain. You have to have a certain amount of charge to actually discharge the signal to go between the neurons. So it's almost, you can think of it in terms of like you have building charge, and only when there's enough charge, which is the 0 point energy, that then all of a sudden makes the thing quantum, makes it all of a sudden appear as a thing in our world. But before that, it is still a thing. It's just that thing is beyond it's not what our world is. And again, it is true that you eventually will have to explain that this deeper layer, and there's something very unsatisfying about physicists pretending that that somehow solves the ultimate problem. It doesn't. But that's what 0 point energy is, if that's what you meant. It is the minimal excitation of the quantum field to give rise to the poop, to the thing that appears as a particle in our space, or as a force. Can't be. Literally. Okay. Okay, let's see. Good lively debate today. Mandalov's Cakes, how are you? See you there. Let's go. Wow, there's a lot of comments. I do appreciate it. Technically, me and you right now are theoretically. Technically, me and you right now are theoretical physicists. Definitely not. Theoretical physicist needs to know quite a lot of more things than we do. I'm not right or wrong. Karen, I love the trolling. It's awesome. 0 is a placeholder. It doesn't exist. Well, 0 is denoting something. It's not a placeholder. You need to understand that all mathematics is a notation system. It's a language that describes different relationships, either in logic or physically or whatever it is. It's a notation system of things to describe certain relationships. So 0 is not a placeholder. It's it's notating something. I said nothing about 0. What if I'm 5D? Oh, I don't doubt for 1 second you're 5D, Karen. You're 100% 5D. 0 is nothing. Do you understand what I mean? I do, my friend. But a 2D being is hypothetical. Yeah, but 4D is not hypothetical. And so we know that space-time is 4D for sure. I can see a black hole in small physics. What's up, bud? Maybe let him play or something? Cool. Sure. Okay, bud. So just a little longer. I can see a black hole in small physics. Small physics. Small physics is a great term. I think they should call it that. That the physics are very small. Small physics. Small physics. Oh, I think I was out of the chat. Did you guys see me on YouTube? I don't even know, because I wasn't even there. I can see a black hole. I don't know what that means in small physics. Is it a problem though? Hello, Mandalov's cakes. Look at the bottom of pool in a sunny day riddled with black holes. I don't know if you understand what black holes are, man. Quartz crystals. Waves is the dance, particles are the dancer. Yeah, you can look at it that way. Okay, but light speed is the same as shutter speed. What? We can match it. We can't measure it. What shutter speed? What are you talking about? We like the senses. But don't you think at a certain frequency we can interact through the 369 and beyond to beyond smart? I don't know what that means. I'm so sorry. It is trying to meet an idea with reality. Space-time reality. 369 represent waves. Okay, you guys are too esoteric for me. I don't know what all of this is referring to. Yin Yang in the house. If not, believe that here is Schoolhouse Earth. Waves that carry particles to specific order. Maybe Tesla was kind of weird. Waves don't carry the particles. Particles are what appears to us when the when there's excitations in the field. So there's no particle. Like it's not. It's like saying when you throw a rock in the pond, the initial bloop, that's the particle. It's just the fabric doing something. Physical laws. Hey, what about those astronauts who were trapped in orbit recently? Oh yeah, that was crazy. Are they back? I don't even know anything that happened there. I love that our view of the universe depends on the number of shape of mirrors. That is actually very poetic. I didn't think of that. Not all, but some theories are complete speculation. No theories are complete speculation. There are not one theory that is a complete speculation, because complete speculation would mean it's all assumed and none of it is rooted in prior information. So no theory in physics is complete speculation. How come we can't have infinite energy? If in an infinite universe, you definitely have infinite energy. But if you have a finite observable space-time, that by definition you have to have a finite usable energy. Not that the energy itself is finite, but the usable energy that you will ever interact with in your pocket of the universe will be limited to your horizon. I love the handle, by the way. The small follow a field the same as the large. No, because the fields have properties. So the properties, this is actually a really good point to touch on. The properties, the fields give the universe the properties that it has. So they're fundamental fields. They're different than an emergent field, emergent waves of anything that is waving inside of what seems to be the created matter, because we can describe that in terms of prior things that are more fundamental. But if you're postulating a fundamental bedrock thing, then explaining it in terms of other things becomes much less tenable. That's the main difference. Because you're talking about something fundamental, you're talking about an axiomatic postulation of why that is. Now, there are some attempts at creating a theory that will explain the fundamental fields in terms of themselves. I think it's not possible. Physicists would disagree with me. The only approach that I've heard that actually makes sense to me is Stephen Wolfram's approach in his new theory of physics, in which the world at bottom is this hypergraph, which describes the computational process, and the branching on this graph is what gives rise to all the possible worlds. The part that I was referring to that I find as a coherent way of thinking about it is that there's something called the Ruliad, which is another graph that essentially describes the set of all possible rules that evolve over time. So it's not just the rules of our universe, but rules in general, like universal rules, not beyond universal, like possible logical rules, period. Okay. And then what you can do is you can find where you are on the map of all the possible rules, and then you can make calculation and back propagation, essentially kind of reverse engineer what necessarily must have been the prior rule that gave rise to the set of rules that we have. And you can actually do that in that frame. And then you keep climbing up the ladder. And ultimately, what you're trying to arrive at is this ultimate rule that gave rise to all the rules, that by necessity, because of it has this ultimate quality of the first rule, it would have some kind of a property, a quality that will make it clear that there is no possible rule that gave rise to it. Now, we're not there yet, but that is the only possible route towards trying to answer this ultimate question that I've ever encountered. Black modern physics is amazing. I love that it's modern. Like black physics would be racist. Black modern physics, somehow it's not as racist. How much I know to be theoretical physics? That's funny. Something shifted for me when you explained the limitation in how we were taught. I picture atoms. Well, I'm glad to hear that. Nassim Harmani talks about how protons can be explained as mini black holes, small physics. Protons and or atoms, forget. Yes, that is one theoretical framework that talks about the potential that all of the protons are essentially black holes. That is true, Chase. And apparently it explains a strong force as gravity on the very small. That is true. That is one frame that is proposed. But don't forget that hey. Relax, bud. Come on. Relax. Okay, I'm going to let him out, babe. Any chance you can take him for 2 seconds? I'm going to adjourn the moment. Because he's going really nuts. Or you want to take him to the room real quick? No, like with this. I think that's smart. No, like, because he's going to pee. 100%. Yeah, 100%. So take him with this. Take him to the room. He will relax around you.
I'll take him to the
Okay. Is it over there? We have a puppy emergency. Apparently explains no, the particle is the physical part of matter and the wave is the structure. Yes, but what I'm saying is the particle doesn't exist until it has an interaction with, like the particle is the interaction. It's not like a right explanation of field got me too. I'm glad that you guys are vibing with it. Let's see, Danny Gurfi. The question on YouTube is what is being intuited there? What is the felt hierarchy in your perception in that felt state? The unfolding of the metallic interface, the opening of the console is after or on top of the non-dual. It's not non-dual at all, Danny Gurfi. Thank you for the question. It's not non-dual. It is definitely a dual state. Like I'm totally a self. I'm a person that is experiencing a console. Or the non-dual, the not there-ness of the individual is the edge which comes from the route in which somewhere the states that was mentioned are scattered. Wait. Or the non-dual, the not there-ness, I understand that part, of the individual is the edge which comes from the route in which somewhere the states that was mentioned are scattered in, which is the felt to be right in your opinion. That is a really good question if I understand you correctly. My strongest intuition, coupled with what I've experienced in the molecule, is that the code that codes for what we experience as the physical world and what codes for what we experience as experience, so like experience itself in hierarchy, basically. So let me first address the question before, and then I'll address this one, Danny. So my perception of it is that what the code that codes for what physical reality is and what codes for perception is essentially, it is bundled, but it is not quite the same. It's almost like the quantum fields. But what I saw one time is that the code that there's these nodes in the code. I saw this grid coming from the floor, and on the grid there's these, I think 3 or 4 nodes in a particular site space that are all have vectors pointing to one another, and this closed loop of pointing creates a unit of perception, for lack of a better term. That is I guess you can think of it in terms of that is the smallest unit, the atom, quote unquote, of a quality that I call it inness. INNS. The reason I call it inness, I don't like when people usually make up jargon because there's enough words in the English language to describe most things. But I think that the word consciousness is misleading, and even the word proto-consciousness is misleading because there's a lot of connotations. So I came up with the word inness. It described just the quality of in, like in. And then the bigger collection that you have of these units that describe the function of in, it by definition implies that there's an out. So it creates this division between in and out. And ultimately, when a lot of these collect together, they create a vision that makes it appear as if there's a difference between here and there, and therefore create a self and other. Now, that relationship can be pierced through by putting enough attention on that function itself. This is what is being described in meditation circles as the dissolution of the self. Because what happens is you pay attention enough to this function that says that there's in, and then what you realize that when you think of yourself, what you're really thinking about is things related to this thing in the center. So you say, this is my favorite drink. There's one arrow pointing in. I like this. I, arrow pointing in, like this, arrow pointing out. So all these arrows pointing in. And then the description of your personality is just a very large collection of all these statements about what's pointing in versus pointing out. And if you look closely, which is what you essentially do in certain forms of meditation, you look closely at the structure of all these arrows pointing in. And what you discover is that if you look for this thing in the middle that all the arrows are pointing to, you realize there's nothing there. They're pointing to nothing. There's nothing in the middle. And that moment, it's possible to have this experience of noticing that there's nothing in the middle that is conclusive. What I mean by conclusive is that it's final. There's truly nothing there, not like as a proposition. You have the experience that there's actually nothing that it's pointing to. And then there's almost like you then can see that this image of the arrows pointing in and out is just a function of whatever the world is doing. There's a phrase that is being repeated in certain circles of the Buddhist tradition. And the phrase is this: there's no one here that all of this is happening to. Now, we can intuitively feel that there's something about this statement, and I'm sure that some people are better than others and even experiencing it on a semi-regular basis. Maybe you're one of them, Danny, according to what you told me before. But for most people, it's not that obvious. And you just, even if you understand that there's something maybe slightly profound about that statement, all it is still a statement in your brain. What is being done with this phrase is that it's repeated again and again and again and again. I think in Dzogchen they do that. And eventually there's like a moment where it breaks. And all of a sudden, this statement, when you repeat it long enough, not as a statement to sound interesting, or like when you repeat it long enough, the meaning of what it really means dawns on you. There's like, oh, like truly, there's no one here that all of this is happening to. There's no one here, no one that all of this is happening to. It's just happening. And there's a possibility of having this experience of truly, like, there's just no me, there's just the world and just whatever is happening. The body exists, the unit of the person exists, but there is no self. So that, and what I saw in that code is that these units is what contrives the experience itself. It's what creates this division, but this division is not real. And then there's just the world happening, essentially. And then to your next question, which is the lower hierarchy, basically from the either non-dual or the perception, or the fields that exist, I think that if I understand your question correctly, you're asking if the perception of the non-dual is it a deeper state than even the quantum fields. I don't know. My intuition tells me yes, but I'm not sure. There are information available about the state where a non-dual self appears, which is paradoxical. It describes not connecting whole movement, a sort of overview in which the internal and external, I think you meant to say connect. Yeah, it's absolutely. It's just that experience is very different than the phrasing of it. I'll go back. Thank you for your comments, Danny. They're very, very useful. And I'm glad that it does some work for you, Mandelov's cakes, because the fields are essentially exactly what we understand about the world. Changing a none of the whole, what hierarchy can build of all that was listed? It only that the only correct. So what Danny also said is the continuation of the previous text, which was externals that are moving together as a felt replacement, changing as no one as a whole. What hierarchy can you build of all that was listed? You don't necessarily have to build a hierarchy, because the hierarchy is built for you by all the functions that make up what you believe yourself to be, including your physical body. And then at a certain point, I'm sure there's a way to dissolve that to an extent where you can actually make changes to the physical body. And it is strongly suggested that that's the case, because as we talked about, there are cases of the mind influencing the physical body in a very extreme way, like with the multiple personality disorder, where people can literally have physical attributes of their body change when the different personality appears. If a big rock, going back to comments on TikTok, Matt Killing is saying, if a big rock rolls down a hill, it is different than small rock, but they both roll down the hill. Yeah, that example is exactly the problem that I was pointing to. That is the wrong intuition to think about it through, because the difference between an atom and a big rock is not the same as the difference between a big rock and a small rock. They are different, not in quantity, but in quality. They operate under. So I'll give you an example that is actually closer to that, but it still doesn't capture the full essence of it. You can have a situation. Thank you for the gift, Mandelov's cakes. Love it. Thank you so much. You can have a situation, even in very standard physics, in our level of emergence, that because of the difference of the size, you have a different enough of a behavior of a physical system that is worthy enough to talk about as a completely different world. What I mean by that is, for example, for ants, an ant can carry a bubble of water. That is because water has a property, the surface tension, that on a human level size is not really something you can truly do anything with, because when you go over a certain volume of water, surface tension is not enough to hold something as a sphere. It will break apart. On an ant level, on an ant size, water tension, this property of water, changes the behavior of the water enough that you can actually hold a bubble of water. And it's simply because of the amount of water available and that fact about what water tension does. The further difference between thinking, so this kind of illustrates to you that size can definitely change a certain kind of behavior to an extent that it would be functionally different, but it still doesn't capture the true difference between a small rock and a big rock and a rock and an atom. There's a further complication or further difference there, which is that not only that what changes is this one property of the tension of the water and how much volume of water it can actually hold, which is based on the geometry and the properties of the fundamental behaviors of atoms and chemical compounds with one another, coupled with a lot of other elements that are like the exact planet you're on, how much gravity the planet generates, and therefore how much things can weigh on that planet, because bigger planets would have things would weigh more on that planet, even if they're the same mass, right? And what is further different about when you're comparing an atom and well, let's go with an actual subatomic particle, so the fundamental particle, so like electron or quarks. What is further different is that as opposed to just changing the influence of a certain geometrical structure and how much integrity it can hold depending on the volume of some material, which is the case with the difference with the water, you also have the fact that the electron is part of, once again, a fundamental field, which means that there's something about that function that is, even if you aggregate a lot of them together, you basically make up the, hold on, I need a second because I want to make sure that I'm not taking you in the wrong direction. 1 second. Oh. Okay. So I'm strike that for a second. The main difference, I'm just going back to the difference between the rock and the atom and how it's different than comparing a small rock to a big rock. The main difference there that is added on top of the difference that I said with the water and the size in the end is that the actual the instance of appearance of what you call an atom is not like what you experience as a physical thing that have physical tangible behavior that pushes one another because of the electromagnetic field. Ultimately, why surface tension works and why anything physical can push anything else that is physical is because it's a collection of a lot of small particles that together, because of they have the electromagnetic force, they repel one another. It's also why you hear things like nothing actually touches one another. So the reason that a rock can push another rock, the reason that the water tension exists, which is an element of pushing, so to speak, is because the electromagnetic field and its repellent force on other things that also have that field operating through it. Okay, so you have the rocks don't actually can't go through one another because of that. Okay, when you're talking about the actual instance of a particle, it doesn't have that thing because it itself gives rise to the electromagnetic field is itself a particle that gives rise to the possibility of there being a force that is repelling the larger objects. So because of this fundamental property of it, you're talking about apples and oranges. They're not the same. It literally just not. It's kind of like equivalent to. I spoke about this in the live before, where people who want to attribute to say that consciousness is just an arising property of matter somehow, right? And they always use this example also with water. They say, well, look, an atom of, H and O, they're not hydrogen and oxygen. They're just like, they don't have the property of being wet, or even a molecule of water like H2O. It's not wet by itself. But if you put a lot of them together, you have an arising property that we call wetness. That is actually a false analysis of the situation, because the wetness of the water is already, it's wet to an already conscious being. But because we're trying to describe consciousness itself, there is no equivalence here, because you can't talk about consciousness not being conscious to something and then all of a sudden gaining the property of consciousness to something. Because what is it conscious to? What is being described as the property of consciousness itself, so you can't actually do the same trick here. And the same goes with the different atoms. They're such a fundamental layer, subatomic particles, that you can't talk about them in the same terms of all the properties that they create. Wow, okay, he's going crazy. Hi, babe, did he pee? Huh? No, it's fine. Then I'll just release him. Because, yeah, he's just going crazy. Fine, bud. I know. You have too much energy. It made me think of how chakras are depicted. Oh, yeah, that's actually a really good thought, Mandela's cakes. The chakras might also be depicted in a way that is not actually describing how they really operate. Would love to hear more about that. Wouldn't that most fundamental rule be void, true void, not just space? Well, that is the conundrum. Oh, you mean the fundamental rule itself? Yeah, but then you would have to explain why. What was that mechanism, Chase, by which the void gave rise to non-void? It's again, we're talking about something that obviously is unresolvable. Maybe I think fundamentally, and from what I understand, even the highest civilizations can't figure it out. That's kind of like the ultimate snake that eats its own tail. I always say the universe is technically an impossible object that exists. It shouldn't be possible to have something out of nothing unless it always existed. But then you're like, what does always existed mean? It's the infinite problem, essentially. The parameter, exactly. Just said a lot of words. Well, I hope you understood some of these words, because I would hope that most of it was intelligible. All right, have a good time walking your dogs, and hi to the trees for me. Oh, someone is getting worked up there. Measurable unit of perception. Inness, yeah. Always pleasure talking to you. Have a good night. Have a good night, man. Killing it. The relief of not finding a core self. Then the veil lifts. You just realize there was never a veil. There was never what you realize in that moment, the perception of it is that there was never this problem. There was never this self that you thought you had. You don't have it right now. It's hard to maybe like pierce through it, but it's right on the surface. Sam Harris talks about it a lot, which is that when you have that experience, you're like, oh, it's just how it is. You don't even, there's no collapsing of anything. There's no angels singing. There's just, oh, it's just the case. It's not like a deep mystery that is being revealed. It's just the truth becomes apparent. That's it. Polarity. Thank you for all the gifts, guys. I appreciate it. It's called adhesions. Yes, it is called adhesion. Googly. There is no veil. Yep. The veil is a story we tell. There is no spoon. There is no veil. All right, guys. I'm going to take a few more comments here, and then I'll have to adjourn today. Let me read some of the comments by Danny. Thank you for all of them. What's up, Funkworm? Damn, you're showing up so late. Can you never come earlier? That would be great to have you with us. Wait, I'm not leaving yet. Let's build an abstract case. Wait, okay. So there's some interesting philosophical stuff happening on YouTube. 1 second. Are moving together as a felt replacement? Okay. Let me see if I can make sense of this real quick. Are moving together as a felt replacement, charging no one as a whole? What hierarchy can you? Okay, so I read that. So let's build an abstract case then. It is a unified road. Let's say we proceed on a highway. which let's say is being built from the unfolding of consciousness, where are you placing these? 1 second. Which is coming first or when? Later, earlier, let's say, at some point, the feeling of time disappears. So let's hold on an abstract distance or a sense of progression on this highway. Okay. When moving on this highway, deeper is later on this abstract highway, even thought we disregard time on this highway just to make meaning in this case. To describe a property to this, we make a parallel. When progression on mental planes, when increasing dosage, we go deeper. On this highway, we would say we go further. When are the states as stations appearing? Which comes first? Console, unfolding tools, code, non-dual state, overview, whole stillness are whole stillness are our station. That's a mouthful. Okay, so and it's probably the last big thing that I will address because this is a deep one, and I'll try and I'll try and do it in the 5 and 10 minutes. Who's not in? It was okay. I see. Ending of the word. I see. Okay. So if I understand your comments correctly, you're essentially equating the progression of events, not necessarily as time, as the road. So forward on the road means things changing. I think I got that part right. And then you're asking from all the stuff that we've mentioned, which is the console, unfolding tools, measuring tools, code, non-dual state, overview, whole stillness are our station. And where do they appear on the road? Which one is first? Which one is after? And all that stuff. That's how I understand your question to be. I would say, and this is like obviously a wild guess. I have no idea, obviously, right? My intuition tells me that the Buddha nailed it with nirvana, which is nirvana is that place outside of reality itself. Don't ask me what that means. Even the Buddha barely talked about it. But that would be the first initial state, which I guess contains perception, but not perception of the self. It contains the seed of perception itself, but not the perception of the self, which is kind of poetic. So that would be the initial thing before anything else. That would give rise to I'm not sure what you mean by overview, but maybe what you mean by overview, if I understand it correctly, because it allows you just a perception of the all without the entanglement with it. So just pure perception. Then you would have it would definitely have the quality of stillness, because that's there would be no self-experiencing stillness, but there would be stillness together, by the way, with the whatever nirvana is. Non-dual would definitely be way further on the road, because non-dual would be very close to the dual state. They were right next to each other. But non-dual is not nirvana. Non-dual just means the dissolution of the person, which is existing way further down the road. Okay. And then after that, you would have the code, which is some kind of a state of description of the whole thing. Or maybe the code comes after overview, because it says it's being coded for, because I'm not sure if the code is being created by someone or somehow reality itself produces it and it allows consciousness to perceive it in symbols. That part is not clear to me. That's why it's very difficult to talk about it in any concrete way. But I would say nirvana, stillness, all one. Then you have, I guess, part of it is an overview, code, then non-dual states, and then you would have the console. The console is the console is content. Console, what I'm talking about when I'm talking about the console is literally like a set of menus that appear for you. So there would definitely be like a thing. Thank you for all these. These are very deeply thought through, and I appreciate that. I was wondering how you stumbled upon a laser experiment, groundbreaking. Thank you, Funkworm. So this is going to be in the documentary. Talked about it quite a few times. You can also see my first video on the subject on YouTube on Dengo Thoughts. Go to the video called, I named it too long of a name, so I never remember what the actual title is. I'll tell you what it is. 1 second. It would be The first video on the subject was called. You have a version of that on TikTok, but it is not the full length. And if you want to see in the full length, I am actually talking about how I arrived at the laser originally, a little bit. Like I'm not giving you the full thing, but the video is called "The Discovery That Will Change Everything" on Dengo Thoughts. And if you watch that video, there's some details that I'm going into about how I actually came to that. However, I would say that the full story will be in the documentary, and you'll be able to we'll be able to talk about it from there. Oh, okay, got it. Yeah, so you'll have to wait for the documentary. Toetron Max, brother, how are you? Good to see you, but I actually have to leave, and hopefully I'll see you guys tomorrow. Deep dive today. Thank you, everybody. Much love, peace and love, and I'll see you tomorrow. See you, Danny, and everybody else that are on YouTube. I appreciate you a lot, and I appreciate this very lovely engagement, brother. Very, very well thought through. I appreciate it. Very excited to actually converse with you soon. Peace.